Number 10, the Joker. In the Last Night on Earth series, we find Bruce Wayne at Arkham Asylum. Yeah, it's super sad and dark. He wakes up to discover that he has never in fact been Batman. Like when he goes to hug Alfred, the panel quickly cuts and then Batman is like out in this random wasteland almost. And he has like this sort of asylum suit on with wavy pieces of white clothing that kind of blows behind him. It looks like Edward Scissorhands or like a mummy. It's kind of cool. But he wakes up in this desert and in the midst of all this confusion, he sees a lantern. Not like a lantern, like an actual lantern, you know? And what's in the lantern, you might be thinking? Just the Joker's head. That's right. So Batman and Noggin, as he refers to it. Yeah, so this Joker has quips. It kind of feels like Shrek a little bit. Now hear me out. We have Batman just trying to figure this whole ordeal out, and he's just trying to figure out pieces along the way, and then we have this crazy sidekick who just loves to talk. The writers really amped it up in issue number 3 of The Last Night on Earth. So during the duo's travels, Joker mentions, in a jokingly manner of course, that he wanted to be Batman's next Robin. Could you imagine that? Well, yeah, you can because it happens. And it's awesome too. So basically you take this lantern Joker's head and mix it in with Tim Drake's mech Robin suit that he no longer needs, and bam, you have the new Robin. He's an actual sidekick in this too, like he almost dies trying to save Bruce from Omega. The Last Night on Earth. Go check it out right now. Well, after the video, but yeah. Number 9, Mr. Freeze. Making his debut back in Batman Volume 2, Issue 1, Mr. Freeze is an iconic Batman villain, and partially because I think the best actor in the world played him in Batman and Robin. That's right, I'm talking about our boy Arnold. Mr. Freeze's biology was altered after being bathed in chirochemicals, so his body heat is only that of 23 degrees Fahrenheit. So anything he touches will also freeze. Now of course this also slows his aging down drastically. He wears a chiro suit to help keep his body temperature below freezing. That is, until a recent Detective Comics issue 1012. Nanotech saves the day. That's right, for years Mr. Freeze has been working with nanotech over and over again until finally he can now survive without the use of his helmet. I mean, as cool as the helmet did look, I think the main Avatar Blue Man Group kind of look suits him, you know? What do you guys think? Helmet? On? Off? I think off. Number 8, Scarecrow. Okay, this next one's for the nerds who also like to game out. Jonathan Crane, aka Scarecrow, is one of my favorite villains, hands down. After making his first appearance in World's Finest Comics, issue 3, and also portrayed by Cillian Murphy in the Nolan trilogy, Scarecrow is known to use fear as a main weapon, which is pretty sick. So we see this in Batman Begins, but we really see the full effects of where he can go mentally, specifically in the game Arkham Asylum. I mean, he's insanely scary and quite the big deal. He almost acted like Freddy Krueger in some ways. Like one minute you'll be walking around in the middle of a mission, maybe you're scanning something, and then all of a sudden the camera starts to change a bit, and then the game changes, and all of a sudden you're in this crazy nightmare. And it's so smooth the way it happens that you get kind of concerned, someone who's actually playing it. I also love seeing this type of Scarecrow in a video game because it made me feel like I was part of it. Like literally I was part of the action. You feel like a detective in the entire game series, it's done so well, but then you also feel pretty scared when you're not sure of what you're seeing is supposed to happen in the game. Some parts I swear my game was glitching. Amazing series if you haven't played it yet.
In at number 7, Batman. Okay, so this one might be my favorite on this list. Similar to Superman, there has been numerous instances where Batman's identity has been revealed to another character or has almost been revealed to the public. But perhaps one of the best identity reveals for the Dark Knight comes at the hands of his pal, the Man of Steel himself, Superman. In this case though, we're looking at the Injustice universe, where the world's finest aren't really pals. This happens in the Injustice comics, and Superman uses a very 21st century method to get the news out there. He posted about Batman's identity on Twitter. His tweet was short and sweet: Batman is Bruce Wayne. Now for context, this occurs in the earlier days of their feud in that universe, and the tweet occurred after Superman attempted to reveal Bruce's identity on a live broadcast, which failed because Bruce shut it down before he could. Personally, I love some of the online reactions to these panels, particularly how fans questioned why Superman wasn't verified on Twitter, and how he managed to get that profile picture of him flying towards a camera. I mean, reasonable questions to ask, really. In at 6, Ozymandias. Ozymandias, aka Adrian Veidt from Watchmen, is a character whose identity was already exposed by the time we encounter him in the panels. But in terms of the overall story world of Watchmen, that reveal is one that continues to make an impact to this day. Now for the sake of this number, we are solely looking at Watchmen and none of the new Doomsday Clock narratives. So when the Keene Act was passed in the series, Ozymandias Ozymandias, the smartest man alive, took advantage of the situation and decided to publicly reveal his identity. In doing so, he used it as a marketing tool to further his ventures in the business world, building himself a multi-billion-dollar empire. Transparency has always been his shtick, so when it came to the reveal that he was ultimately behind the genocide scheme, his plan was so well orchestrated that there was no way anyone aside from his fellow peers, and us readers, would know the truth. That being said, Watchmen ends on a wee bit of a cliffhanger, with Rorschach having mailed his journal to a newspaper that reveals the truth prior to his confrontation with Veidt and his own death. Now, speaking of Watchmen character reveals, that brings us to our next number. In at 5, Rorschach. Alright, so here we have a number that was more of a reveal to readers rather than a reveal in the story. Although, technically, it was one of those two. To be fair, Rorschach's identity is actually foreshadowed right from the very beginning of Watchmen, during Rorschach's first monologue. You can see a civilian identity, Walter Kovac, walking on the street below carrying his sign, "The end is nigh." A flash of red hair very visible in the panel. Walter's appearance on the streets of NYC continued throughout the series, always with him holding his sign. Then when Rorschach is captured by the police after he's been set up by Ozymandias, we learn that the Sign Man and Rorschach are one and the same when he is demasked. And what he believes to be his true face, his mask, is ripped off of him. And when he's in prison, Rorschach's identity is revealed to all of the criminals he helped lock up. Yet when they riot and try to take him out, he outsmarts them yet again and maims them. And then is retrieved by Night Owl and Silk Spectre. Not rescued, just retrieved. He doesn't need rescuing. In at number 4, Batman and Superman. Okay, so this reveal is literally a 2-for-1. We are talking about that time that Batman and Superman in the Silver Age accidentally revealed their identities to one another, and it just made them closer friends. So, back in 1952, Batman and Superman met and worked together for the very first time in Superman issue 76, long before they tag-teamed on the regular in World's Finest. Now in this story, the two of them shared a cabin while on a cruise ship, as Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent. When trouble is stirred up on board, they both react by saying they're tired and turn off the lights in their cabin. Then, while in the dark, they each quietly changed into their superhero costumes. But then, light pours through the porthole in their cabin, revealing the truth to one another. Pretty ridiculous, but also incredibly wonderful at the same time. Later versions of the story would be redone in more realistic ways, like in the animated 1997 Batman Superman World's Finest film. Up next at 3, Tara. DC's Tara has a different kind of reveal. She went from being a member of the Teen Titans to the shocking reveal that she was actually a villain, working for Deathstroke, and a completely different person than what we had seen her portrayed as being before. And also, her and Deathstroke might have a weird, inappropriate sexual relationship. Tara is the pivotal character in the Judas Contract, which is one of the most iconic Teen Titans storylines to date. She would join up with the Titans, flirt with Beast Boy, and then all of a sudden this 15-year-old superhero reveals herself to have been infiltrating the team, motivated out of her hate and anger towards the world. One of her creators also called her a slut, so almost caused the downfall of the team too. The revelation of her true identity and motives occurred in Volume 2 of the New Teen Titans issue 34, and she would be later defeated for good, aka killed off, in the Tales of the Teen Titans Annual 3, 1984. Up next at 2, Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a character who's had reveals in both the comics and the MCU, and in both cases, the reveal has made major waves in their respective universes. Now let's start off with the MCU reveal, since that's the one that we haven't seen the full reaction to yet. So, in Spider-Man Far From Home, in the first post-credits scene, J. Jonah Jameson makes an appearance in which it's revealed that, despite Peter defeating Mysterio, the villain had the last laugh, framing Peter as a homicidal criminal. He reveals his identity as well, which Jameson then exposed to the public, much to Peter's shock. Now, in the comics, Peter has had to juggle a few different reveals in the past. Back in 1966's The Amazing Spider-Man issue 39, the Green Goblin found out Peter's identity after he found a way to neutralize his Spidey sense. He trailed Peter home to discover him returning to Aunt May's house, and he then attacked him on the spot. But perhaps the more important reveal came much later, during the second issue of the Civil War story event. Peter's identity was publicly revealed, and it would eventually lead to a series of terrible events, including Aunt May being attacked and almost dying, with Peter having to strike a deal with Mephisto to save her, which in the process undid his marriage to Mary Jane Watson and rebooted him in Brand New Day, where his identity became a secret once more. And last but not least, in at number 1, Iron Man. This one is a double whammy yet again. We are talking Tony Stark in both the comics and the MCU for this number, since both were pretty darn monumental. And really, there's been multiple occasions in the comics where Tony Stark has revealed his identity to the public, but he's also taken it back a bunch of times. In 1998's Iron Man Captain America Annual, Tony used used a device that made the world forget that he was a superhero persona. He once revealed his identity to the public in the middle of a press conference to save a dog. He revealed it again in Iron Man Volume 3, Issue 55 in 2002. It also happened in the first Civil War story event, which occurred between 2006 and 2007. Now that one was entirely intentional, and meant to be a permanent reveal, as a means of garnering support for pro-registration in Civil War Frontline Issue 1. What can we say? Tony loves the limelight, and he's strategic as But the best reveal comes in the form of the cinematic adaptation of Tony Stark. In the MCU, at the end of the first Iron Man film in 2008, Tony Stark holds a press conference and decides that he's going to reveal his identity as a superhero, which is the event that is responsible for kickstarting the rest of the MCU. And that, my friends, is something that changed everything. Even in our own world, the pop culture impact that the MCU has had is undeniable.
Number 10. Mr. Sinister. From an obsession with capes to an army of Sinister clones to Miss Sinister to just his days as semi-mad scientist Nathaniel Essex, Mr. Sinister has changed quite a bit. Even just through his origins, we learn how much the character went through to become the villain he is today. Sinister took his name from the condemning description his wife gave him on her deathbed. She refused to forgive Nathaniel for his evil ways, calling him Sinister, a name which would stay with him and help him usher in a new role. He also has changed from just a human who is altered by Apocalypse's celestial tech to now being considered a full-fledged mutant in his current form. Number 9. Lucas Bishop. Bishop has gone from being a good guy to a bad guy a few times throughout the year, though most of the times I'd say when he is a bad guy, he's misunderstood. But it isn't just his alignment where we've seen change here and there throughout the years. He has also undergone some changes to his power set, being able to use his energy manipulation and absorption powers for more, becoming stronger, and he's had a few physical changes too. His bionic arm quickly became a classic part of his look, but he didn't always have it in the comics. He originally had 2 organic arms, but had one ripped off by Predator during the events of the Messiah Complex, and had to have it replaced with a cybernetic prosthetic. Does he still have that prosthetic? We don't really know. It hasn't really come up yet in Dawn of X. He's always wearing gloves, so I can't tell. Number 8. Luke Cage. When Luke Cage was originally introduced, we knew him as Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. That very first, very stylized look that he had would later evolve into Power Man, and then eventually Luke Cage would just become Luke Cage again. Although Luke Cage wasn't even really his original name. His original name was Carl Lucas. Luke Cage was actually a criminal once upon a time, and it was during his imprisonment in Seagate Prison that he was exposed to experimental testing, which granted him his powers. Turning away from a life of crime for profit, he instead decided to use his powers to become a hero for profit. Since then, he has often been a full-fledged hero for heroic sake, and has even led his own Avengers team, the Mighty Avengers.
At number 7 is Daredevil. This guy has had a ton of different costume changes over the years, starting with what has become the most unusual Daredevil look of them all, his original yellow and red costume from Daredevil number 1 in 1964. But since then, we've mostly seen him go full red, and although eventually he changes his look so much that he appears as an actual demon in the Hellspawn and Earth X storylines. He's appeared as Captain Universe, with his costume gaining an otherworldly effect with a spacey design and white pants, which is also a first. And if we're to count Dark Devil, we also saw him with pointy shoulder pads as if he were a Mortal Kombat character. Mutant X also gave us a really different look with a half black, half red, skin tight suit with more pronounced horns. The point is, Matt Murdock and the few others who may have taken on the mantle have gone through countless different costumes, and Daredevil continues to be one of the superheroes known for changing it up quite often. At number 6, we have none other than Iron Man. I mean, in his first appearance, he is literally a guy in a big suit of armor, which basically looks like it's more of a hindrance than anything. And Tony only changes the color to gold when he starts fighting with the Avengers. But there have been so many different iterations that I can't even name them all. Even between the 3 self-titled MCU movies, his armor changes a little bit, whether it be the color palette or a slight change in the shape of the armor. But aside from that, we have his Hulkbuster armor, which is an enormous bulky upgrade, then Iron Man Superior, which shows us a silver and blue design, which isn't even iron anymore by the way, it's made of an endosymbiotic substance, offering a whole different look and purpose. So whether he's changing his look to add weaponry like the War Machine suit, or to help breathe underwater like the Hydro or submarine suit, or whether he wanted to go full blue to blend in with his stealth suit, Tony Stark can't seem to make up his mind. And honestly, we can't get enough of it. At number 5, we have Harley Quinn, who is right now a superhero, so I'm involving her in this list. Originally brought on as a sidekick to the Joker in a 1992 episode of Batman the Animated Series, Harley Quinn has become an icon in pop culture, and pretty quickly too. In her first appearance, she had the classic red and black checkered jumpsuit and the jester headdress. But her costume makes a small change between the animated show and the comics, with the checker design shifting slightly as well as her mask making a small adjustment. And then, pretty quickly, she shifts more in the comics, with her hair starting to show partly in one earlier iteration, then entirely in her 2014 self-titled comic series. Of course, we can't forget about her look in the DCEU, with Margot Robbie's portrayal shifting the character's look into a whole new realm. This naturally influences the 2016 comic series as part of the DC Universe Rebirth, when her hair once again appears entirely free of the headdress, but instead of black and red, it's dip dyed with the now iconic blue and pink, being otherwise blonde. Now, I know that these changes are all natural progressions of the character's costume, but Harley Quinn is also known for changing her look temporarily for circumstantial cases as well, like her hospital uniform, her roller derby outfit, her punk rocker look, and the Task Force X outfit. And who can forget the Gotham Arkham Knights uniform, just to name a few. At number 4, we have Hawkeye. This guy seems to always be wearing something different, and the only constant at this point seems to be his bow and arrow. When we were first introduced to Clint Barton in Tales of Suspense number 57 in 1964, he had a purple, blue, and yellow palette with a big fat H on his forehead. But soon after this appearance in 1972, he appears in Avengers number 98 with a blue tunic and a headband, looking more like Robin Hood than anything else. And do you remember when he took on the mantle of Golden Archer briefly and had a completely yellow outfit with a cap and feather? Well, that didn't last, obviously, and he was back to a purple hood and jumpsuit. In the 2000s, he shifts to a darker, more modern look, which I personally prefer, and in 2011 we see him don a dark blue uniform that covers his face entirely in the Ultimatum series. Then in Ultimate Hawkeye, he takes the mask off again and has the red and black look with the red goggles, which kind of goes back to corny again, personally. Old Man Hawkeye changes it up again and comes forward with something like an earthy tone with cloaks. A lot of cloak work in the later years of Hawkeye. Anyway, I had to leave some out because there are so many cases, but let me know what your favorite suits are. And at number 3 we have Wolverine. With a character who's pushing 200 years old, you'd expect him to change up his look a few times, but Logan has made so many aesthetic choices over the years that it's hard to keep count. Originally donning the classic yellow, blue, and black look, he doesn't stick with it for long. Soon we see his outfit go red and yellow in 1980, then full black later in the 80s, and then of course the now classic 2000s look where the jumpsuit is scrapped entirely, at least in the movies. He then takes on the white undershirt and jeans during this time with the dog tag, but then the animated series X-Men Evolution shows him with an orange and black jumpsuit, and then a total reversion to his original look in 2004's Astonishing X-Men. He then takes on the black look again in X-Force, and then back to the dog tag and white undershirt in X-Men Origins of 2009. It actually just seems like they cycled through his classic looks again starting in 2004 up until the present, when we're back to seeing Wolverine mostly appearing in his casual clothes in the movies and something like the original yellow and blue in the comics, but who knows? I'm sure he'll switch it up again before we know it. At number 2 we have Batman. Of course we do. His costumes have gone through so many different phases, it's almost impossible to keep track of them all. But strangely, his suit hasn't really changed that drastically since it first appeared in 1939. It's just all these different alternate outfits Bruce Wayne has taken on over the years for brief periods that have been so diverse and fun to see, and the reason why he sits at number 2 on the list. Some of my favorite looks he's taken on over the years have been the 1958 Zur-En-Arrh look, the 1960 magnetic zebra suit from Detective Comics number 275. Briefly, it's a weird one, go check it out. The Dark Knight Returns armored suit, John Paul Valley's Nightfall costume starting in 1993, the Batman Beyond look in 1999, and even the Stealth Insider suit after Final Crisis. Then the much darker Flashpoint suit that Thomas Wayne takes on, which adds some red to the equipment belt, which is a really cool change. And they just go on. I could just keep going with them. Batman just won't settle on one look, but it does make sense for a hero that relies pretty heavily on his gear, that his costume would require a change up pretty often to keep him competent on the battlefield. Okay, finally, at number 1, can you guess? Yes, you probably got it, it's the one and only Spider-Man. Do I need to list them? Spider-Man seems to have a suit for everything. And with Tony Stark on his side, he gets some really great upgrades with the Spider Armor, which is personally my favorite line of suits. But even in the MCU, Spider-Man's costumes seem to be a big part of any conversation, only coming after maybe the new casting choice and whether or not the fans are going to be happy. And even within any given movie, we will often see more than one iteration of the costume within a 2-hour span of watch time, whether it's the homemade suit or the symbiote costume or even some version of the Spider Armor. We're so used to seeing Spidey's costume change that it's become part of the experience of the character. And this interest in what this hero wears has been cultivated simply by all the different looks that Peter Parker has taken on over the years. The Future Foundation suit, anyone? That's gotta be one of my favorites. There are too many to list, so let's just maybe chat about it in the comments.
Number 10, Mr. Sinister. While we might not have originally been aware of the changes Mr. Sinister went through to begin with, we would later on learn more about the villain and in so doing, learn about all the great changes that Nathaniel Essex originally went through to become Mr. Sinister. Sinister was created following Essex's turning to the dark side, becoming BFFs and partners with Apocalypse and allowing Apocalypse to help Mr. Sinister evolve into the best, most freaky looking version of himself. Since we've come to know Sinister, he's also died at the hands of Rogue and would later return as a bunch of different fail-safe clone versions of himself, including the iconic genetic virus implanted clone Miss Sinister, which would later allow him to be reborn as a mutant officially. Number 9, Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a villain who's kind of all about change, as that's kind of his mutant ability. And Sabin Nur discovered that evolution was his ability, and it is this power that kept him so strong and feared throughout time. That, and he also allowed himself to be altered by celestial technology. But not just his power levels and appearance have evolved over time. Apocalypse has also recently turned over a new leaf, joining his mutant brothers and sisters on the mutant nation and island known as Krakoa. There he begrudgingly works alongside his former enemies, even if he does often consider them to be still weaker than him. Still, he has fully embraced the ideals of Krakoa, even changing his name. He no longer goes by Apocalypse, but by, well, however you say this in Krakoan. In fact, he actually created his own name in Krakoan, as these symbols don't adhere to what we know of the Krakoan alphabet this far. I'm really hoping that someone at Marvel will start up a crash course in how to speak Krakoan, because I know how to read it, but how to speak it remains a mystery. And I still don't know exactly what Apocalypse's Krakoan name is. Though I assume it's something similar, but in Krakoan? Number 8, Kite Man. Kite Man was originally known as a B-list or even a C-list villain. Chuck Brown's Kite Man was actually a character inspired by Charlie Brown, who also had an affinity for kites. His original origins was simply that he was a kite-obsessed kid who grew up to become a kite-obsessed supervillain, belonging to Batman's gallery of rogues. However, when his character was reintroduced as part of the New 52, he was given a more tragic backstory of losing his son to a poisoned kite string, caught up in the war between Joker and the Riddler due to being the creator of Joker's Jokermobile and getting involved with Batman. It's a really hard time for Kite Man there. The death of his son caused him to become a villain and later somewhat of a hero, who is known as Kite Man. We've also gotten a relatively more humorous version of the villain, with more of a throwback to and play on his original C-lister status in the Harley Quinn animated series. However, the depiction of Kite Man in the Harley Quinn series has actually also led us to seeing a resurgence of his popularity, or has just allowed him to become popular, because I'm not sure if Kite Man ever had that before. Were people fans of Kite Man before the Harley Quinn animated series? Put up your hand if you were there before in the comments.
At number 7, we have Thor deciding to give up Mjolnir. That's right, even though Mjolnir is the weapon best associated with the God of Thunder, he's currently laying down his hammer in the comics. After ascending to the throne of Asgard and becoming the new Allfather a couple of years ago, Thor has increasingly found it more and more difficult to lift and fight with Mjolnir, with the weapon even seeming to become more stubborn rather than simply heavier. Thor eventually came to the realization that the hammer is meant to be used by a warrior, not a king, and so decided to lay down Mjolnir for now as he focuses on leading Asgard into a new age. Which, coming from Thor, that's actually pretty mature for him, so good job, buddy. Coming in at number 6, we've got Tim Drake coming out as bisexual. In a world where the sidekicks of the Batman universe usually deal with a lot of trauma, heartbreak, and unfortunately crowbars, it was a nice change of pace to see the third Robin getting a chance at some genuine happiness. After rescuing his friend Bernard, who he'd shared some flirty banter with before from a mask-wearing cult, Bernard asked Tim for a chance at a date without any supervillains, a request to which Tim smiles and says yes. Years since his breakup with Stephanie Brown, aka Spoiler, it's really good to see Tim getting back in the game. Coming in at number 5, we've got Ben Reilly's return as Spider-Man. Actually a clone of Peter Parker with a super complicated backstory, Ben Reilly has had a long journey as an anti-hero commonly going under the name the Scarlet Spider. However, it seems this year that Ben has returned to possessing the Spider-Man name, as it looks like the Beyond Corporation has bought out the rights to Spidey's likeness and is now using Ben as the official corporate-sponsored Spider-Man. Add this to the fact that the real Peter Parker is currently stuck in a hospital bed due to radiation poisoning, and it looks like Ben Reilly might need to wear the classic costume for just a little while longer. Coming in at number 4, we've just learned the true identity of the One Below All in the Marvel Universe. So here's a Hulk-sized spoiler warning if you're still planning on reading The Immortal Hulk issue 50. The end of this giant green epic sees the revelation that the One Below All, the main antagonist of this entire storyline, and seemingly the deepest, darkest evil at the bottom of the entire Marvel multiverse, is actually the same being as the One Above All, aka the Marvel multiverse's highest tier of god. Just like the Hulk to Bruce Banner, the One Below All is a twisted version of the One Above All, destroying what the other creates in a cycle of birth and death. Kinda like yin and yang, but with a lot more glowing green gamma energy. At number 3, we've got the true identity of the titular Last Ronin in this spin-off of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. Taking place in a dystopian future where the grandson of the Shredder has completely taken over Manhattan, The Last Ronin only revealed at the end of its first issue that the last surviving Ninja Turtle is none other than Michelangelo, the last brother you might expect to have gone super dark and serious. And while technically this twist was revealed in a cliffhanger at the very end of 2020, it wasn't until this year that the character of this traumatized Michelangelo and how he dealt with the deaths of his 3 brothers was revealed, leaving this a Ninja Turtle story with a lot fewer laughs and pizza parties than usual. Coming in at number 2, we've got Venom becoming the new god of the symbiotes. After years of build-up through events like Absolute Carnage, the creator of the symbiotes, known as Null, finally reached Earth in the King in Black event. One of the strongest villains that the Marvel multiverse has ever faced, it took every symbiote-wielding character teaming up to stop him. And when the dust finally settled, the many symbiotes of the Clintar race now look to Venom as their new leader, as the destroyer of their original god. And while the sheer weight of this responsibility is already having ramifications on Eddie Brock and Venom's personal life, this is definitely a rise in stature for a being that started out as simply a costume for Spider-Man. Coming in at our top spot today, we've got John Kent, the next generation Superman who made headlines when he came out as bisexual and kissed his boyfriend, Jay Nakamura. Initially meeting when John accidentally revealed his secret identity during a rescue attempt, Jay is a superpowered journalist that runs his own independent network and fights for truth and justice in his very own way.
Number 10. Heroes Reborn is not Heroes Reborn. Although this isn't a huge character-based change or anything like that, I think it's important to note the major difference between this event and that of the Heroes Reborn event that came many years prior. The original Heroes Reborn event happened in the 90s from 1996 to 1997 and was a crossover event orchestrated by Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld. The initial Heroes Reborn crossover gave us a glimpse into a world where the heroes who had died in the events of Onslaught thought were reborn, with many aspects of the characters and world differing from the one that we had known prior. The 2021 event, Heroes Reborn, has no connection to this event, save that it's also a glimpse into a fundamentally different alternate world. Or at least many of the fundamental aspects are different. Still a superhero world, so that part's not different. Number 9, Siege Society. This miniseries tie-in has not started yet, but it's going to give us a pretty different spin on some of Earth 616's greatest heroes, so I figured it might be an important one to tell you about in anticipation of its release. Siege Society is a team of villains in the Heroes Reborn continuity made up of a combination of some of our most powerful and capable heroes from Earth 616, as well as some of the main continuity's most notorious villains. By the looks of issue 1, we'll see Baron Zemo leading the team, and it appears based on the cover that we'll likely see Jean Grey, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Sabretooth, and Scott Lang's Ant-Man joining him. The first issue releases on May 26th, so we'll have to wait till then to find out more. Number 8. Thor is not mighty. Nor is he a god anymore, really. In this reality, Thor doesn't even believe in gods. He is an alcoholic who believes he is a human and does not really know the truth of his heritage. At least that's what we're initially led to believe. As on Earth 616, Thor was sent to Earth by Odin to learn humility. Once he had become worthy, he would be able to return to Asgard, and in the main continuity would also become a hero of Earth and a mighty avenger. However, in Heroes Reborn, Thor never does learn humility and is unable to return to Asgard in time to save them all. Instead, Mangog comes and destroys Asgard, killing all the Asgardians, including Thor's father, the All-Father, Odin. Number 7, New Teen Titans. A lot seems to be happening in the new Future State Teen Titans comic, one of the most preeminent being that we have a new team of Titans emerging here, featured even on the cover. But who are they, and how did they come to be Teen Titans, and what old members of the team still remain? Well, we still have Nightwing and Starfire in the team, as well as Beast and Cyborg, though in a new form, but we also have Miko Queen. Oliver's half-sister is Red Arrow, or potentially just Arrow now in this bleak future. They also seem to be working alongside Shazam here as well, who has his own team, and of course they have the surviving students of their school. This story of Teen Titans takes place after the school's collapse and the unfortunate demise of many of their pupils, as well as much of the world. The team opened up the school to train new young superheroes, which I love as a concept, and I'm actually really excited for the spin-off series that's going to come out of this, which is the Teen Titans Academy, where hopefully we'll get lots more look-backs to the nice, happy days of the Academy. That'll be cute. Number 6, Deathwing. There is actually so much going on in Teen Titans when it comes to the team and world changes. One being that near the end of issue number 1 of that series, Dick Grayson becomes Deathwing, donning a Deathstroke mask and his Nightwing suit. In issue number 2, we are also offered another alternative for this mashup name that is pretty hilarious, but that I definitely cannot repeat here on YouTube. So if you're not reading Future State Teen Titans, by the way, it's definitely, I think, worth a read. I really enjoyed it personally. Some people think it's too much, I think it's just enough. We also learned in issue number 2 that Nightwing has been working on and off with Slade Wilson, so in that regard, his look also makes a lot of sense here. Although Grayson insists that he hasn't worked with Wilson in months now. Still, I don't think his team is fully convinced on that point. I feel like Starfire is also just rolling her eyes, she's like, oh my gosh. Nightwing, why? Number 5, New Justice League. Now that it's been a little bit, I feel like I can chat about what went on with our Justice League team at the end of their story in issue 1. Not only do we have a new roster, which I'll get to in a minute, but at the end of that issue number 1 of Future State Justice League, we saw them become trapped and replaced. Of course, they weren't just going to give up, as we see in issue number 2. I mean, they are still the Justice League after all. But just who is in this league? Well, I touched on some of the things that make this team different in terms of their rules and their charter on part 1 of this list. It's now time to focus on not how they are, but who they are, which I also love that issue number 2 dives into a little more in terms of characterization. Wonder Woman is, of course, Yara Flor, not an Amazon in the traditional sense, but from the Amazon. Superman is John Kent. Batman is still Jace, aka Tim Fox. Aquawoman is Princess Andy Curry, daughter of Mera and Aquaman. Jess Chambers of Earth 11 is Flash, and Green Lantern is Joe Mulleen from Far Sector, and by far my favorite member of this league. Although I do also think it's really cool that Jess Chambers is Flash. It's weird. It took me a while to like actually piece that one together. I don't know if I'm just like some sort of noob, but just realized that recently. Number 4, Detective Chimp. Huge changes afoot for Detective Chimp's character, featured in the additional Justice League Dark story we saw in issue number 1 of Future State Justice League. I was more focused on Justice League in part 1 of this list, so now it's time to get a little dark ourselves on part 2. One of the major changes we see here is that Detective Chimp in the future has become the host for Demon Etrigan himself. Neither party seems to be too happy about that situation, and we don't really find out in this specific story how all this came about or what exactly happened to Jason Blood, but it's definitely a crazy and interesting development. And actually, if you read issue number 2 of that series, you will find out more about that. So if you're wondering where'd Jason Blood go, what's going on, check out issue 2 of Future State Justice League for those answers. Number 3, Cybeast. As I said, we get a combination of Cyborg and Beast in this one, and I really meant that. Very literally. In Teen Titans, it's revealed that the two have merged together and now exist in one shared body. It's pretty freaky, but also in a way, it's really cute and awesome. I love Cyborg and Beast dynamic together as friends and teammates, and I think if anyone had to share a body, they're the chosen few on the team who could actually make that work. And they do make it work pretty well. Number 2, Red X. This might not be a big character change in terms of like the actual character themselves, because we don't really know a lot yet, but just the appearance of this character in the comics is a big deal. Red X appeared in the Teen Titans animated series, and the true identity of the character was always a mystery. Like in the story here, we learn that Red X's mask and costume used to be one that belonged to Nightwing, but what we don't know is who is donning it now. Some theorize it could actually be a younger member of the family, perhaps a different Robin, such as Damian Wayne, or that it could be a new character, Bao Pham, aka Clown Hunter, who first appeared during Joker War. Right now, it's unclear, but either way, the appearance of Red X in Future State is huge, regardless of who is under the mask. And yeah, you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in Teen Titans 2 as well, I still don't know who it is. I feel like it's still a mystery. So I guess we're gonna have to wait till Teen Titans Academy. We're going to the Academy to find out. Number 1, Four Horsemen. While Future State initially seemed like it was just a bunch of individual stories, we are now seeing as it progresses that there is more of an overarching and intertwining timeline at play here, with a grander story. Now, not everyone is going to be into that manner of storytelling, but I personally love a good jumbled and mysterious timeline. I love to try to solve it. It's like solving a mystery or like building a puzzle, and I love figuring that all out and just getting a bunch of little pieces. If you feel the same way about this, then one key piece to this puzzle that you'll want to know about is the Four Horsemen. These four end up being defeated by Raven in Teen Titans issue number 2, but have actually made appearances across our timeline. We've seen or felt their presence in Future State comics like Shazam and Flash and Green Lantern, though exactly how they all kind of fit in still remains a bit of a mystery. Of the four, all look familiar, with Wally West, the Flash, who actually has his own tombstone pictured in the Teen Titans series. And if you're thinking, no Amanda, isn't that Wallace West? No, actually there is a Wally West tombstone and a Wallace tombstone, so yeah. And also Roundhouse is another one of the Four Horsemen that stuck out to me personally. But these four are definitely all connected to the far reaches of Future State, so keep an eye out if you're trying to build that puzzle by like looking at everything. It's a lot to look at, and we're not going to get all the pieces, I don't think, here. We're going to have to go to the other series to find it all out. Number 10, Peter and MJ never get together. Another thing that never happens for Peter in this reality, other than not becoming Spider-Man, he never ends up dating the girl next door, Mary Jane Watson. In this reality, both graduate high school and go their separate ways, although they are presented as being neighbors and somewhat of distant friends. It's also implied here that Peter and MJ never got to be as close as they were on Earth 616. There also is no mention of Gwen Stacy or Harry Osborn in this reality, so we can assume that Peter was more of a loner here. MJ still plans to work as an actress, and Peter goes on to college, presumably to study something in the scientific field at Empire State University. Number 9. Quicksilver is dead. In this reality, Quicksilver no longer lives. It's mentioned in Heroes Reborn issue number 3 that he was killed during a fight between Squadron Supreme and the X-Men, implying that in this reality, Quicksilver and likely his sister Wanda are both still considered mutants. He is believed to have been killed by Blur, the Squadron Supreme speedster. Kinda like a version of the Flash. He was definitely faster than Quicksilver. In fact, Blur is believed to be the fastest man alive in this reality. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, just a quick reminder to give this video a thumbs up if you are loving Heroes Reborn as much as we are. Number 8. The Silver Witch. Self-proclaimed Speedster Supreme. Either Wanda and Pietro were mutants in this reality or simply still believed they were. Here, Wanda never left to join the Avengers and so never reformed, remaining a villain. After the death of her brother, Wanda absorbed his powers, becoming not only a powerful hex magic user, but also the fastest hex magic user likely to ever exist. She apparently refers to herself as the Speedster Supreme and set out to get revenge on Blur for the death of her beloved brother. It also appears that Wanda senses that something is wrong with this world and Blur. She currently believes, however, that it is the death of her brother that makes her feel this way, but it probably has something to do with her sensing something is wrong with this reality, and with Blur's presence in it. Number 7. Wally West, the villain. As much as this should be a big change, it seems to be becoming less and less of a surprising one when it comes to Wally's character. It seems DC is obsessed with making Wally West their big bad speed villain. In Future State, we see Wally consumed by a mysterious entity known as Famine. This entity turns Wally against his friends, family, and fellow speedsters, even as they try to help him. Feeding on their speed energy, Wally breaks the connection many of them have to the Speed Force, and even in some cases takes away more than just that. I don't know why DC is obsessed with making fan favorite Wally West become a villain, but as interesting of a change as this is to his character, it's slowly becoming the modern status quo, which kinda ruins it. Also, people don't want to see Wally as a villain. Or most people don't. I don't know. Do you want to see Wally as a villain? Let me know in the comments. Number 6. Jessica Cruz. Jessica has lost her powers! You heard me right. We learned in one of the extra stories included in Future State Green Lantern issue number 1, titled The Taking of Sector 0123, that Jessica Cruz is all alone and powerless in outer space. She still has her ring with her, but is unable to use it. And the rest of that issue actually goes into that a little bit more. And it is alone that she faces a team of Yellow Lanterns who infiltrate the base that she has been guarding, and it is alone that she faces a team of Yellow Lanterns who infiltrate the base that she has been guarding and consistently maintaining all on her own for the past year. And yeah, it's a tech base, not a construct, so yeah. Fortunately for Jessica, she still has her training which she can rely on. She also won't remain without superpowers forever, likely, and you can check out the issue to learn more about what I'm hinting at there. Cruz fans especially should enjoy this story. I personally was like, this is pretty cool. I think it's my favorite one in that book, in the Green Lantern book, issue 1. I don't know. I think so. Number 5. No fraternizing. The new Justice League aren't just here with a new roster, but they also come with new rules as well. The biggest one seems to be that they aren't supposed to get to know each other, hang out, or really fraternize in any way. Heck, they don't even have a headquarters and aren't allowed to actually have any meetings. Say what? We find all this out in issue 1 of Future State Justice League, when John Kent, who is the future Superman, asks his fellow teammates if they would be interested in having a meeting. He acknowledges, however, that it breaks protocol. In fact, this team all seem to be more about doing their own thing than banding together, and often seem to get on one another's nerves. Still, despite it being against the rules, Yara and John seem to have found a bit of common ground, and have formed a friendship outside of the League. Shh, don't tell the League police. Wait, are there League police in the future? And Aquawoman and the Flash have also seemed to form some sort of a relationship. Number 4. Defeat. The League we are introduced to in issue 1 ends up torn asunder pretty quickly in that first issue. Now, I don't want to spoil just how that all goes down because it's honestly, I think it's a pretty neat read in my opinion, but just a reminder to not get too attached to our new team. It seems that their new charter rule of not fraternizing does not necessarily equate to giving them more strength. Here's hoping that this defeat actually might help them to maybe amend that policy in the future and like get rid of that part of the charter. Of course, only time will tell what the Justice League's true fate ends up being. We'll have to wait for issue 2 to find out. I really like this team, so I'm kind of hoping we see some kind of redemption for them at some point. I'm kind of hoping we get to see them, like, in, present day at some point, because I like them. I think they're cool. Number 3, the Magistrate. Gotham has a new major villain, potentially one of its greatest yet. It faces a force known as the Magistrate, who appear to have been contracted by Gotham's current future mayor, Christopher Nakano, to keep Gotham orderly. In fact, when I heard the Magistrate, I actually thought it was one person, but I don't think it's one person now. And by keep Gotham orderly, I mean impose curfews, shoot masks on sight, and arrest people who are peacefully protesting. I mean, hey, I guess they were out after curfew. The Magistrate's presence can be felt across all Bat-centric and Gotham-centered stories and books, but seems to really loom aloft in Harley Quinn and has a commanding presence in Catwoman, where Selina herself goes up against their forces on a train transporting a ton of the Magistrate's prisoners. Number 2, new Batman. With a new future comes a new Batman, something we haven't seen happen for quite some time in the comics actually. I think the last time we saw someone take up the Bat mantle actually would have been way back when Dick became Batman for a bit. But now, who should be taking over after Batman's mysterious but not actually real death? Jace. Who is Jace? Jace is also known as Tim Fox, Luke's brother. While we don't know very much about Tim as he hasn't been seen for quite some time in the comics, we do know he seems to have some very passionate motivation for taking up the mantle. In this futuristic Gotham too, where tech can easily be tracked and traced, Jace as the next Batman is forced to go without it for the most part, relying on more old school gadgets like his batarangs and his flashbangs. Flashbang. Number 1, new Wonder Woman. Of course, one of the biggest and brightest changes seems to be the addition of Yara Flor, who is seen as the new Wonder Woman in Future State. Yara first appeared in Dark Knight's Death Metal issue number 7, but also has her own Future State comic subtitled Wonder Woman for people to check out. I think I can safely say she's been the most popular of the new characters introduced thus far. Yara herself is not actually from Themyscira, but from the Amazon, so really still an Amazonian when you think about it. Okay, that was a bad joke. Being from the Amazon rainforests of South America, she does not typically work alone, sometimes accompanied thus far by her winged horse Jerry and forest guardian spirit known as Kaipora. I think I said that right, Kaipora. I love Kaipora's look, by the way. I feel like I really want to do a Kaipora cosplay. Let me know what y'all think. Number 10, all masks are bad. Whereas we've known the government to not necessarily condone vigilantes, they usually aren't actively hunted down by the police or federal agents. However, in Future State Gotham, we see a new status quo, one where vigilantes are seen as just as bad as the villains that they fight against. In some stories, villains are referred to as black hats and heroes are referred to as white hats, but at the end of the day, they are all the same in terms of them being masks. And that isn't good in this future at all. Masks are basically seen by Gotham's ruling forces as criminals, and Gotham is even working to make sure no one can question their authority when it comes to shooting and killing masks on sight. In fact, they've already made that a policy, though there are still some legal precedents that Gotham's police and peacekeepers need to overcome and figure out when it comes to avoiding prosecution themselves. Number 9, Harley Quinn team up. Kind of a weird one too. In Harley Quinn issue number 1, we find out that Harley has been captured by the Magistrate and is being used as a pawn and tool for Dr. Jonathan Crane, formerly known as Scarecrow. In this current climate, Scarecrow of course is no more, as masks are illegal. Harley, after being captured for being a mask, gets some time to reflect on her own alignment a bit, and I'm sure that will end up actually being her overarching journey in this story, to figure out sort of who she is and where she belongs. To start, however, she seems to be pretty balanced, or I guess kind of unbalanced, when it comes to doing both. She is tasked by Crane to use her brilliant former doctor and psychologist mind to help him find and defeat other villainous masks who have been eluding the Magistrate so that they might be imprisoned. An interesting and, for Crane, infuriating team up that will hopefully end up leading to Harley's release, escape, or hey, maybe even we'll just leave her simply as Crane's oddball but genius partner. I'm kind of down for any/all of the above. Number 8, spoiler, the traitor. Stephanie Brown seems to have found a new title amongst her Bat family in Future State, and that title is traitor. Initially, Spoiler was believed to have turned her back on the Bat family, befriending various villains and leaving her heroic ways behind, then becoming captured by the Magistrate's forces and locked up. She really started focusing on survival as opposed to doing what is right, which caused her to be looked down upon by the fellow members of her Bat family. We see her and Cassandra Cain actually come to blows, fighting one another initially when they are made cellmates. It seems like there is potentially going to be a lot of tension between this very divided Bat family. Something that we don't usually see much of. Okay, well, depending on which members we're talking about. The question is if Spoiler, or Patch as we know her in Future State, has really changed sides for good. Or I guess I mean for bad. But is it permanent? I'm gonna have to read to find out. Number 7, Tony Stark never built Iron Man. Imagine a reality, if you will, where Tony Stark never became Iron Man. In Heroes Reborn, Stark never got hit with shrapnel in the chest, wasn't kidnapped, and did not end up being forced to make the Iron Man armor. Not having this life-changing experience meant that he continued along a path that he was on before any of this happened, continuing to be a greedy but brilliant arms dealer and billionaire playboy. In the greater scheme of things, appearing more as one of Earth's everyday corporate villains as opposed to any kind of national or global superhero. Number 6, the amazing Shutterbug. Peter Parker doesn't get his powers as you'd imagine in this reality. Instead, the spider that was intended to bite him that day ends up squashed, meaning no Amazing Spider-Man. Instead, we get a powerless Peter who ends up becoming the amazing Shutterbug. He graduates high school, goes to college, and ends up still working for the Daily Bugle as a photographer. In this reality, he also still goes out and takes pictures of superheroes. He just isn't one of them. Peter captures Hyperion dealing with the Annihilation Hive on his camera, but one manages to escape the hero. It's up to Peter to protect the office and his colleagues from it. Using his smarts, he manages to do so, but ultimately ends up being bit by this one surviving Annihilation bug, causing him to transform into something more monstrous than his 616 counterpart, a member of the Annihilation Hive. However, it is implied that comes to a quick end, because he throws himself out a window, so yeah, he probably doesn't make it. Number 5, the mystery of Wakanda. While on Earth 616 and in the MCU, the secret of Wakanda's powerful existence and technology have been revealed to the world, in the Heroes Reborn reality, this information still remains on a need-to-know basis. And it turns out the world, according to Wakanda, does not need to know. What this means is that no one really knows about Wakanda, and its greatness and capabilities still remain at large a myth. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this Heroes Reborn list and you want to learn even more about it, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. I'm going to be following along with it, so I'm happy to tell you more about it. Number 4, the Ronin King? Just as the public's knowledge of Wakanda seems to be altered, so too does it seem will be Black Panther's role. Instead, we can likely expect to see T'Challa take up a new mantle. Based on a variant cover for the current Black Panther series, issue number 25, it seems that T'Challa will instead be taking up the mantle of Ronin. On the cover, we see him dressed as the character with the Heroes Reborn event name below, and given the new identity in italicized letters of the Ronin King, period. I cannot wait to meet this new king. It's like a twist for the character that I never thought about. I love it. Number 3, no more Avengers. In the place of the Avengers who never formed in the Heroes Reborn reality, we have the Squadron Supreme of America, here to protect the world from national, global, and intergalactic threats. Their members seem to take some inspiration from another very prominent superhero team in comics, DC's Justice League. Blur is Stanley Stewart, an alternate reality version of Marvel hero Wizard, known for his superhuman speed and speed-based powers. Power Princess is Zarda Shelton, an alternate version of Zarda. She is a utopian who gets her powers from training and her unique heritage. Dr. Spectrum is Joseph Ledger, an alternate version, once again, of that same character. His powers are granted to him by the Power Prism, originally a cosmic artifact or tool given to him by a Skrull after Joe had saved that Skrull's life. Nighthawk is Kyle Richmond, also an alternate version of Marvel's hero of the same name. Nighthawk has no powers, but is a master fighter, marksman, detective, and corporate businessman. And finally, we have Hyperion, who is Marcus Milton, an alternate version of Mark Milton. Hyperion gets his powers from being an Eternal, meaning that he can fly, has superhuman strength, speed, and endurance, is virtually immortal, and can manipulate and wield cosmic energy, which he usually chooses to shoot through eye lasers, basically. I'm not gonna call it heat vision, but you know what's happening here. Yeah, it's like Marvel's Justice League. The original Squadron Supreme of Earth 712 made their first appearance in Avengers issue 85 in 1971. And I believe they also have like a mini-series, so if you're looking for stuff to read, that might be a good thing to go back and check out if you want more Squadron Supreme, or if you want to get to know them better before you come into Heroes Reborn with me. Come on into Heroes Reborn. The water's fine. Number 2, President Coulson. That's right, in Heroes Reborn, Coulson ends up as the president. It's also implied that he is one of the few people who remember what the world used to be like before everything was altered. I have my suspicions for who might be behind some of this. Here, Agent Coulson is President Coulson. Phil himself is up for re-election and perhaps might be up to something sinister from the way he seems to be enjoying and unafraid of an attack on the White House, which is defended against by Hyperion. I never stopped to think of how Phil Coulson being president might be a bad thing. Granted, I also never considered a reality where Coulson would be president. Totally caught me off guard. It turns out this is only because Phil Coulson isn't really the one calling the shots. He's actually controlled in turn by the still villainous and immensely powerful Mephisto. Number 1, all villains are dead. Sort of. A lot of them are, anyways, though we've kind of been promised some surviving and new ones will rise up and take their place. When it came to Earth's and the galaxy's greatest threats, the Squadron Supreme decided to capture those villains and put them in prison. Not just any Earthbound prison either. Instead, they decided to use the Negative Zone as a prison, against Reed Richards' recommendations, I might add. In issue 2 of Heroes Reborn, these villains managed to escape during the attempt to add Dr. Doom to their prison. Having escaped, it is up to Hyperion to round them up, which he does, but this time they are not really going back. Their punishment for escaping is a bloody death at the hands of Hyperion. All in seemingly one day, he takes out Galactus, the Brood, Mr. Beyonder, the Hive of Annihilation, Ultron, Winter Soldier, the Widow Guard, Namor, and the Hulk. Just another day's work for Hyperion.
At number 10 is the Hulk vs. Cthulhu. The Incredible Hulk number 3 has delivered a colossal showdown that's got everyone buzzing. In the latest issue, we witnessed the unimaginable as the Hulk throws down with none other than the Eldritch Terror itself, Cthulhu. That's right, you heard me correctly. Hulk vs. Cthulhu. Now, I've got to admit, we're only 3 issues deep into this story, and the Hulk literally just punched Cthulhu itself, and I'm absolutely here for it. Now, while the series as a whole might not be the same as the classic Immortal Hulk, where we explore the complex duality of Banner and the Hulk, it certainly combines the eerie horror elements of Immortal with the epic monster battles that the Hulk lore is known for. The big green question, of course, is whether this Clash of the Ages will stand the test of time as we venture further into the series. But for now, let's relish in the sheer spectacle of the Hulk taking on one of Lovecraft's most fearsome creations. It's a new Marvel edition that's got fans like me eagerly flipping those pages, wondering what other surprises await us in this thrilling new storyline.
Number 9, The Bachelor Life. While the previous run on Spider-Man felt like it was setting up a return to the relationship we've so often loved, and that for a long time was Spidey's status quo, the long-awaited but relatively short-lived marriage of Mary Jane and Peter Parker, Zeb Wells' run on the series seems to have permanently quashed that idea. My heart, you can hear it breaking. I was really excited for Wells' run, but even I was bummed when I began to feel there would be no payoff for us Peter MJ shippers from Nick Spencer's story. Unless things start to move down a different path, it seems more than likely that Mary Jane and Peter Parker will never get together ever again, and instead MJ will continue to maybe be happily married to Paul Rabin and continue to fight crime. Now with randomized luck-based powers as the hero jackpot. Not something I ever thought I'd be saying, but here we are. Peter, however, seems to be destined to always have bad luck in love. He was with Black Cat temporarily after things fell apart between him and Mary Jane, but now even that is no longer a thing, so he is once more single.
If you're enjoying this video so far, you could support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Next up on the list is number 8, Spider-Man is the new Green Goblin. Our list introduces a shocking emergence of a new Green Goblin, and no, it's not Norman Osborn, but our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man himself. See, Kraven the Hunter and the Queen Goblin join forces in a revenge-fueled alliance, leading to a wicked twist. See, Spider-Man gets infused with Norman's dark legacy and memories, becoming the new Green Goblin. villain. As the Amazing Spider-Man issue 33 kicks off, Peter Parker, now sporting the black suit, takes center stage with an intriguing monologue, delving into why he still clings to his infamous black suit, hinting at hidden depths to his motives. But Peter's not just here to talk about fashion choices. He's realized that Kraven's meddling has transformed him, and he's done playing nice. Our edgier Spidey goes on a rant highlighting how villains like Kraven perceive him as an easy target because of his friendly demeanor. But no more Mr. Nice Spidey. He's had enough and vows that no villain will escape his justice. Spider-Man's newfound determination doesn't go unnoticed. In a shocking turn of events, he ends up burying Kraven alive, marking his the first name off of his hit list. This darker persona promises a reckoning for villains who've long eluded their just desserts.
Number 7. Stillness and mysticism. In this reality, Stanley Stewart's The Blur is presented in a very different way from most speedsters. One, he seems to live with ADHD as a result of his speed powers, which I think makes a lot of sense, given not just the world we live in, but given the idea of having speed powers in a modern world. I already feel like I struggle to maintain focus on one thing, and I'm moving at human speed levels, so yeah. But the other part of his character that is unique to his Earth 712 counterpart and the world of speedsters in general is that he ends up seeking help after he gets his powers from the Ancient One. During that visit to the Camartage, it's explained that these powers are a gift given to Stanley by the Vishanti. In order to find peace and master them, Stanley must master stillness. In stillness, with his newfound powers, he is able to see into other dimensions. In stillness, he's able to see everything around him, something most people miss out on by going fast. It's not only a beautiful sentiment, but a new and refreshing take on the idea of speedsters and on Stanley Stewart's powers. We all sometimes just need to breathe and just be present, you know? I love that. Comics and stories highlighting the importance of that in life. Number 6. Aunt May dies. Here it isn't Uncle Ben who dies, but instead is Aunt May, which, wow, if you thought Uncle Ben's death was a heartbreaker, wait until you experience May's death. Ugh! Especially considering that May is a character that we know a lot better, due to the fact that in more realities it is always Ben who dies earlier on, so we've had more time to get to know May. Aunt May's death here happens while Peter is in college. He is planning on heading home to join his aunt and uncle for dinner before they head out to a show together downtown. However, while she is out shopping, Hyperion ends up in a fight with a villain, recklessly tossing, I think it's a billboard at the villain, which smashes into the very building she has been looking for a new dress in. Her death hits Peter hard. He is forced to drop out of college to help support his uncle and get a job at the Daily Bugle, using his new drone tech to capture footage of supers, who he has obviously also come to resent. Not an ideal scenario. Number 5. Peter Parker leaves the Daily Bugle, or he's in the process of kinda leaving when his one-shot comes to a close. We don't really know the fate of Peter just yet, but it doesn't look good based on the end of the Peter Parker The Amazing Shutterbug story. Peter is not happy working at the Daily Bugle and is feeling pretty defeated, but Uncle Ben gives him the advice that if he isn't happy, he should seek out whatever makes him happy, work to make that change. Ben reminds Peter that he and May raised him to not let the world beat him down, to keep dreaming big and going for his dream. Which, I gotta say, I love this little like pep talk from Uncle Ben, because I just feel like Peter is the type of character that is always like so down on himself and so like defeatist, and this kind of calls that out in a great way and allows Peter to kind of undergo a change there, which is, I don't know, kind of unique. Peter is kind of stuck in a cycle usually in 616. So Peter, taking Ben's advice, confronts Robbie at the Bugle about not being happy taking pictures of superheroes, basically threatening to quit. Robbie tells Peter to just give it one more day and then he'll try to look for something else that Peter can use his drones for in the meantime, something more meaningful. Peter agrees, but he never gets to finish his day and never gets to potentially move to cover something else at the Bugle or leave it completely due to him being bit by one of the surviving Annihilation hive bugs. Transformation Station. Number 4. Captain America remained lost. In this reality, Captain America's history was similar to that of his Earth 616 counterpart, with him being a preeminent hero around the time of World War II. However, after he went MIA, his body would not be recovered as the Avengers were never found. Instead, he remained frozen in the ice for what would seem to be forever after. However, Blade, who remembers the reality of Earth 616 and how things once were, managed to find Rogers himself and free him from the ice. It seems to be implied that Rogers may also sense that there is something wrong with the world, though it's unclear if this is just because he woke up from a decades-long nap. Hyperion himself is shown to dislike Captain America. In his civilian persona as Marcus Milton, history teacher, he marked a paper harshly that was about the World War II hero, encouraging the student who wrote it to basically get better at discerning fact from fiction. So yeah, that's what he thinks of Captain America. He's like, he's not even a real superhero. I don't know why that's my Marcus Milton voice, but there you go. Number 3, the Fantastic Four never existed. Here, Reed Richards and his friends Susan Storm, Ben Grimm, and Johnny Storm never went on that fateful trip to space and so never received their powers from cosmic rays. While we see Ben and Reed together in the second Heroes Reborn issue, there seems to be no sign of Johnny or Susan there. So it's unclear if the four are even friends or work together now. Both Ben and Reed ended up as agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this reality, with Ben still being more focused on tactical ops or perhaps groundwork as a soldier or a pilot, and Reed being more focused still in the realms of science, using that big old brain. Number 2, who is Nova? In the Heroes Reborn one-shot Hyperion and the Imperial Guard, we get a bonus story featuring the Starjammers. Yep, they're making another Starjammer series, friends. So if you're a fan, yay. And if you're not a fan, they're doing it anyways, so just deal with it. It is here that it's revealed that Johnny, having never got his flame powers from exposure to the cosmic rays, did not remain on Earth, but turned to the stars, joining the Nova Corps and even earning the rank of Elite Supernova. Pretty impressive. Johnny would ally himself with Lilandra in the fight over who should rule the Shi'ar Empire. Together they attempt to recruit the Starjammers to their cause, and it is because of his allegiance that he was being hunted by Hyperion and the Imperial Guard, who work for Emperor D'Ken, Lilandra's brother. Number 1, Phoenix is in Ravencroft. What? Near the end of issue 3 of Heroes Reborn, we also learned that the new Phoenix, Maya Lopez, aka Echo, is located in the Ravencroft Institute for the Criminally Insane. How did she get here? Why did she allow herself to be here? I just have so many questions. But of course, I'll need to wait for them to be answered. Kind of. Right now, in regards to our new Phoenix, all we know is that she also senses something is wrong with this reality and that she's willing to join Blade and Captain America's team of reality-busting heroes to help fix it. Yay! She also seems to be a little bit concerned that maybe her new Phoenix powers were involved in this and that she accidentally did it without knowing. Oops. However, instead of worrying about her own actions and what she may have unintentionally done, Maya also might want to watch out, because we also know from Hyperion and the Imperial Squad Starjammer story that Lilandra is also planning on using the Phoenix Force to take the Shi'ar Empire away from her brother. Yeah, Lilandra's after that Phoenix Force and she's like, I have a plan to capture it. I don't know how she plans to do that, but I'm interested in seeing what her plan is.
Starting us off in at number 10, Hail Hydra. In 2017, Steve Rogers became a Nazi. Well, okay, a duplicate of him from another reality was a Nazi. Specifically a Hydra sleeper agent who wreaked havoc on the 616 universe when he came out and started pursuing world domination in the name of Hydra. A bunch of characters ended up dying, and it felt like everything Captain America stood for was kind of obsolete during this arc. Like many of the changes on our list, this one did not stick. Besides, it was an alternate version of Cap anyway. But the Secret Empire conflict did make for a few drastic changes to the 616 universe, like killing off beloved longtime characters like the Black Widow, although she is back now. She's been cloned, because death is irrelevant in comics. Moving on to number 9, Spider-God. Spider-Man's origin story is arguably one of the most recognized in pop culture, bitten by a radioactive spider. The death of Uncle Ben. Great power means great responsibility. It's iconic. So, why ruin a good thing? That's a question a lot of Spider-Man fans had when J. Michael Straczynski decided to mix things up. Motivated by keeping up with the mythos of the character more in line with the first Spider-Man film, starring Tobey Maguire, which featured biological web shooters. He introduced a retcon in which Peter was actually linked to a totemic spider god instead of the spider bite being a coincidence. Peter was then wounded, built himself a cocoon, and then came out of it with more new powers. Unfortunately, this won't be the last time that we mention the web slinger on our list. Despite being one of Marvel's oldest and most beloved characters, he's also seen his fair share of retcons and adjustments that have outraged fans over the years. But more to come. Let's move on to our next number. In at 8, Goku. Moving away from the panels and taking a look up at the big screen, let's talk about our first movie adaptation change on our list that really pissed fans off. In 2009, Dragon Ball Evolution was released. It was a feature film meant to adapt part of the Dragon Ball saga, and it starred Justin Chatwin as Goku. Yes, that's right. They cast a white dude to be the lead for a live-action adaptation of an incredibly popular manga and anime. Rumor has it that the studio behind the film believed that casting a non-white actor would just make the film less marketable, but really it just made it more offensive and a complete joke. Plus, to be fair, it was not a good film at all. There was a lot wrong with it beyond Chatwin's casting. Speaking of whitewashing though, that brings us to our next number.
Number 7. Poison Ivy. Taking place in Batman Joker War, we find a ravaged Gotham City. The Joker has sent out all his goons to run around and basically mess the place up. Most of Batman's villains are just laying low at this point, just kinda waiting to see what happens, you know, just watching from afar. Now at this point, we haven't really seen much of Poison Ivy in the storyline. After a brawl with Punchline and Harley, most of Poison Ivy's hidden underground cave, called Eden, burned down. So Poison Ivy returns to look for Harley and she sees the damage. Oh, there were a few of Joker's goons inside, but they obviously didn't last long, as you would have expected. She explains to the last guy before she kills him that she's done with distractions, and instead of rebuilding this cave, which she easily could have done, she summons up this new plant called Devil's Ivy. Cool name too. Speaking of cool names, she reveals her new persona, Queen Ivy. That's right, shortly after she builds a throne, a fancy new outfit, and to top it all off, a crown. I dig it. Number 6. Killer Croc. AKA Waylon Jones, he made his first debut in Batman number 357. We saw him in Suicide Squad and he looked pretty bad. It's kind of like a dinosaur, or like the lizard from Amazing Spider-Man, whatever. We don't talk about that movie in here. We're talking about DC, we're not talking about them. So the introduction of his character in Suicide Squad actually got me pretty pumped. And then the rest of the movie happened, so. Short-lived, to say the least. His OG look wasn't nearly as menacing though. I mean, see, from his debut back in 1983, he looked like a guy. A strange-looking guy, but still more human than his current look nonetheless. Now at this point, he was just a criminal with a scaly skin disease, where now he looks like a monster, donning the full-on Croc monster look. And if you want to see these big changes for yourself, make sure you check out Batman Hush Killer Croc, where he looks arguably the most bad. There's one panel where he's just towering over Catwoman and he's like, I want my money! And she's like, alright man, chill out. I would my leather pants. Very fast. Number 5, Joker. This one is super recent. I did say spoilers at the beginning of this video. You were warned. Warned, I tell ya. So in Batman Joker War, the Joker appears to be wearing a bat suit. Yeah, and it's pretty bad looking too. I mean, come on. He's got the smile across his chest, they got the ha-ha-ha's written on the side, and to top it all off, he's even sporting the purple cape. It's amazing. So Batman had no idea that this is what he would find. I mean, first a dead Alfred greeting him, and then now a Joker in a bat suit. Get me out of this nightmare, what is going on? So how did this even come about? While Punchline and Joker's goons turned Gotham into a flaming death zone, like I mentioned earlier, the Joker was busy going after Wayne's fortunes. And I loved seeing this version of the Joker as well, like going after Wayne's money right off the bat, pun intended, even confirming his own actions by saying, you know what, I'm going against my own brand on this one. It's just fun. And we also saw similar looking suits back before Suicide Squad even came out, and like promo material and stuff. And it got us pretty hyped up. Me and my friends were talking about it. Yet it never happened. A lot of those things just didn't happen in that movie, eh? Number 4, Clayface. Basil Karlo, aka Clayface, made his first debut back in 1940 in Detective Comics numero 40. He was an actor that had gone a touch crazy when a remake of his classic movie was released with a new actor. Kind of like what we get to see every other month. So he decided to adopt this persona of an old movie villain, Clayface. And this guy's pretty neat. He can mimic anybody just by getting a smidgen of DNA. He can change the shape, the size of his body. Solid actor, eh? So method. Cut to Detective Comics Volume 1, Issue 934. Clayface had escaped Arkham Asylum. Why, you ask? To go to the movies. Yep, he went to go see himself on the big screen. To see himself. I don't watch myself really. I watch a few of these, but too scared. So as the crowd of moviegoers obviously runs out in a frenzy, Clayface is left sitting there wide-eyed, just wondering what could have been, watching his own performance. So Batman and Batgirl enter the theater, shocked that this is the reason he escaped. All he wants in this moment is just to watch the 84-minute movie and feel good again, to remind him who he was once. Batman responds with, well, what if I could give you more than that? What's the catch, he answers? Well, the catch is, says Batgirl, you're gonna have to do everything we say. And poof, we have Clayface on the home team. Let's go. Number 3, Harley Quinn. Making her first debut back in Batman Harley Quinn in 1999 and portrayed by the insanely talented Margot Robbie, literally one of the best actors on the face of the earth, Harley Quinn has always been known for flipping back and forth, changing sides. She's kinda weaving in and out a little bit, you know? Even her character evolution in the new DC movies alone, like looking at Harley in Birds of Prey compared to how we met her in Suicide Squad. In the comics, her relationship with the Joker is abusive and it's controlling, and Harley has histrionic personality disorder, so she has a lot of things in common with the Joker. So when it comes to seeking attention with all these crime lords, she's super entertaining when she tries to get Mr. J's attention. She uses her psychiatrist skills to get in close, you know, get in your head a little bit. She's super lovable as well. I mean, obviously, look who's playing her. I'm glad DC is moving Harley to be her own character in this new live action franchise. It's a nice message too. It's like, you know what, no matter how deep in love you are with a psycho, you can always break out of it, start a gang, and kick some bad guys' ass. There's always time, guys. Number 2, Catwoman. Making her first debut in Batman #1, Selina Kyle looked a bit different from the start, to say the least. We've seen numerous actors play the iconic jewel thief, from Michelle Pfeiffer, or as I said growing up, Michelle Pfeiffer, to Zoe Kravitz, set to play her in the upcoming Batman flick with Pattinson. So we know the look by now. All black, slick, couple of quips, some eyebrow raises. She kicks. This look was never the case, however. In the first issue she appeared in, she was actually referred to as the Cat, simply put. And at this time, her outfit looked just a bit more lame, if I can say. She kind of looked like Doctor Strange in a weird way. The all yellow dress, the red cape, but the best part, she had a realistic fur mask. It wasn't until 1946 until her mask was changed to a more fitting look. Still not quite what we're used to, but it's a step in the right direction, that's for sure. Then in the 50s, she was deemed more of a sidekick to Batman rather than a villain. And finally, number 1, the Joker, Death of the Family. This next one is wild. And yes, the Joker was on this list more than once. Well, because I wrote it, okay? That's it. We go back to 2012, Batman Volume 2, Issue 13. Now, the Joker at this point had not been in Gotham City for about a year now. He originally got captured and sent to Arkham Asylum, but that was all part of his plan. So while he was in there, he made a meeting with Dollmaker, where they cut off Joker's face, and then the Joker escaped without a face. So a year later, the Joker returned to Gotham, still without a face, kills some cops, all Joker-like, still without a face, and then he steals his own face out of the evidence room, just slaps it on. He kind of has to tie it. It's really gross. Imagine looking around and then you just see your own face. That's it. So he masks up, or faces up, whatever you want to call it, and then he captures Alfred. Wild. The look of this mask though, oh, it's so loose and gross, looks like baloney. You gotta love it.
Number 10, Kitty Pryde. But now she'd rather you call her Kate. We've seen a huge transformation for Kitty Pryde over the years. Her power levels have grown exponentially, with her now not needing to even hold her breath while using her powers. Her exposure to the ancient artifact known as the Black Vortex exponentially boosted her powers, allowing her to phase the entire planet of Spartax through its snug amber casing. She has since changed even more, becoming the fearsome Captain Kate in the new Dawn of X run. Kate becomes the captain of the ship known as the Marauder and recruits her own crew of mutant friends, a new team she calls the Marauders. That's right, she's taking that name back for the heroes this time around. No more bad guy Marauders. Her new look and role as the Red Queen has definitely been a massive change for Kate, but one that I think many of us have loved. Number 9, Gwen Stacy. Gwen Stacy was one of Peter Parker's first ever girlfriends and definitely remains his first love. Even with his long-standing relationship with Mary Jane, he'll never forget Gwen. But Gwen died a long time ago in comic book history, and she hasn't really ever officially come back to stay. So, how can she have changed if she's, kind of permanently dead? Well, what has really changed when it comes to Gwen is her overall character. Now, when you are talking about Gwen Stacy, the first comic book version of her that comes to mind, usually for most people, is Spider-Gwen of Earth 65 these days. This version of Gwen is a little bit more edgy and rebellious. Instead of Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man on Earth 65, it was Gwen who took up the mantle as Spider-Woman. She's a very different and honestly more interesting and successful version of the Earth 616 Gwen. And it's crazy to think that comic book fans usually think of Spider-Gwen before thinking of the original whenever her name is brought up. just because Spider-Gwen's a little cooler, let's be honest. Number 8, Captain Marvel / Carol Danvers. No, we're not talking about the gender bending of this superhero persona from the Kree Marvel to becoming the now part Kree / human Carol Danvers. We are talking about just Carol Danvers' growth as a character here. Originally, Carol was a security guard who ended up getting powers while being saved by the original Captain Marvel as the Psyche Magnetron exploded. This machine was sort of like a wish-granting machine, and during the explosion, Carol's exposure allowed her wish to be granted. She got superpowers similar to Marvel's. She would go on to become Miss Marvel, lose her memory a few times, and eventually become the strong and very independent woman that she is today. A member of the Avengers who has since taken on the Captain Marvel mantle for herself, once her former lover / friend / role model, Marvel, passed away. We've seen Carol change not just in her superhero mantle and character design, but we've also seen her personality change and grow over time. And we've witnessed her become even stronger and even more sure of herself as time has progressed. Most of that probably has to do with her, not losing her memory as often anymore. Number 7, Monica Rambeau. Monica has been through so many different costumes and identities since she was first introduced. While we did talk about Carol's change from Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel, before Monica was Photon or Spectrum, she was Captain Marvel. In fact, she was Captain Marvel not only before Carol Danvers, but before Genis Vell, Marvel's son, was even Captain Marvel. In fact, Monica only gave up the mantle of Captain Marvel, who she was originally introduced as in the comics, because of Genis Vell wanting to take over that mantle. In fact, that isn't the only mantle that Genis Vell took up that originally belonged to Monica. He now goes by the name Photon, which belonged to Monica in the 90s, before he took up that name in the early 2000s anyways. Monica has had to change names and superhero identities quite a few times it seems, because no one ever wanted to let her keep a name. In fact, she's actually only ever been known as Spectrum, her current superhero alias, since 2013. So I guess we'll wait and see if this sticks. Number 6, Iron Man. Before Tony Stark appeared, played by Robert Downey Jr. in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he was kind of a sidelined character. Iron Man wasn't many people's favorite Avenger, nor did he have as much of the spotlight as he would get after the success of the Iron Man and Avengers films. But even ignoring the massive change to his popularity throughout the years in the comics, whether or not you were a huge Tony Stark fan before or after the MCU became a thing, he also went through a lot of character changes in the comics as well. He's recovered from alcoholism, had tons of character redesigns when it comes to his armor, has basically become part tech at this point through experimenting and modding himself. He's turned evil more than once and has died as well more than once, even at one point being killed and replaced by a younger version of himself. Whew, talk about growth. Number 5, Superman. DC is known for their consistent characters. It's what so many of us love about that publisher. Their characters are iconic and classic because they're so consistent when it comes to what they represent and stand for. As such, what Superman believes in and stands for hasn't drastically changed over the years, but the character has undergone some major changes since the initial version of his character was first introduced in Action Comics. His powers have been a lot more pared down. Originally, Superman's power set would change dramatically depending on what kind of powers the situation called for. He was basically a wizard. Oh, and speaking of being a wizard, he's also now gained a weakness to magic to keep his insane power levels in check as well, since he was created. He was also kinda not so nice originally in the comics, with him going to all kinds of lengths to manipulate people regardless of how it made them feel. To put it bluntly, well, he was kind of a jerk. Superman now is much more considerate and kind than he was originally. In fact, that's what we associate him more with, not with him, being a jerk. He also has gotten married to Lois Lane, and the two started a family together and had a son, John Kent. Number 4, Batman. Another DC staple who is known for being relatively constant. Batman has actually changed a lot since he was first introduced. Of course, now the original Batman isn't even really the same Batman, nor is Superman really the same Superman. What we mean is the Batman you were first introduced to in the pages of Detective Comics was later retconned to be an alternate Batman, despite technically being, the first one. That Batman is now associated with the alternate world of Earth 2. That is where the character started, even if he was retconned to be an alternate. So many changes have happened to his character from then to now. Let's not forget that while Batman has a very strict moral code now, back then he was a man who was willing to kill and even use guns. He used to be a playboy, but has more recently had a more stable and ongoing relationship with main squeeze / on and off again partner Selina Kyle. He became a father to Damian, and he's had so many Robins since his first sidekick, Dick Grayson, appeared on the scene. So many Robins. Too many maybe. Number 3. Beast. Hank McCoy has gone through a lot of changes since he was first introduced, especially in terms of his character design. When people think of the codename Beast now, they likely can't picture anything but the big, bouncing blue beast that we have today. Originally, however, Beast was not known by this name because he was a big, blue, furry guy, but because of his giant stature, his giant hands, his giant feet. Hank was also brilliant, but he was also very adept athletically as well, and actually that was his mutation. He was just an abnormally strong, agile, big dude. However, after being exposed to a serum he'd created meant to suppress the mutant gene, Hank found his own mutant gene accelerated. The serum was also made using Mystique's genetic material, so that could be where the blue came from, if we're talking about like logically, except that when he originally transformed, he had gray fur for a while, before it ended up to continue to mutate and actually became black. Blue only ever really came into it in terms of comic book history because artists and readers became confused due to the blue being used as a common highlight color for black at the time. And as the years have gone on, Beast has also become more and more cat-like in appearance with every passing year. So that's a weird change that I don't really know why that happened, I guess artist style. Number 2. Superboy Prime. Superboy Prime originally was a good guy, but oddly enough it was his confidence in the consistency of this fact that turned him crazy and evil, believing however that he is still the hero of the story, because where he comes from, he really is. In his reality, Earth Prime, not to be confused with the continuity of Prime Earth, superheroes only exist in comics, save for Superboy Prime, who is the only one. After his Earth was destroyed, he plotted to find a way to fix the continuity with Alexander Luthor of Earth 3, becoming a villain. When forced to face with the fact that he was no longer the hero of the story and had become a villain, he suffered a psychotic break, which also made him insane, and really more evil. Number 1. Bucky Barnes. Bucky hasn't just changed in terms of his design, but he has also gone on to pretty much become an entirely different character since his early days. Originally, Bucky Barnes was the most happy-go-lucky sidekick of Captain America, Steve Rogers. That is until Bucky was suspected dead after going MIA on a mission. Steve would mourn Bucky, and Barnes' death would become known as one of the few comic book deaths to remain constant, being considered permadead for over 40 years. He was one of those characters who would just never come back, at least so we thought, until he did come back, with a robotic arm and a new role as a brainwashed military assassin working for Russia known as the Winter Soldier. Bucky would eventually become good again, but his time as the Winter Soldier would change him forever. Number 10. Red Hulk. Thaddeus Ross was always a Hulk villain, but originally he was just an irate military general who believed the Hulk was too great a threat to be allowed to live. He became obsessed with capturing and often killing the Hulk. His obsession only grew more fervent over time, driving him to madness and eventually leading into his transformation from human Hulk nemesis known as General Ross into the villain known as Red Hulk. That's right, his hatred of the Hulk actually ended up leading him to later become like the Hulk, simply in order to get revenge. That is how twisted his mind had become over time, starting as a military general who was originally concerned with national safety, proving that rage can change you and leave you blind to the monster you may be transforming into. Number 9. King Shark. Originally, many believed that King Shark was simply a mutated human. However, it was rumored that King Shark may actually be linked to a being known by some as the Shark God. And this was later added to King Shark's origins and history, making him more than just a bizarre villain who happened to be part shark, part man, as he now had mystical origins. His initial character design and appearance in the Superboy comic from the 90s has also changed radically in comparison to how he's often depicted as looking and dressing today, especially in the Harley Quinn animated series. Number 8. Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn has pretty much always been one of Spider-Man's greatest foes over the years, but while he is iconic and steadfast in many ways, he has also gone through a lot of changes just in regards to his own supervillain identities. He also briefly became a sort of bizarre anti-hero who was really still a villain in disguise, when he fired the shot broadcast around the world, killing Skrull Queen Veronke, who was impersonating Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman. Killing the Queen of the Skrull Empire granted him hero status and put Norman in charge of his own hero agency, which he named Hammer, which replaced Fury's disbanded S.H.I.E.L.D. He then created and became the leader of his own superhero team composed of villains, known as the Dark Avengers.
Number 7. Poison Ivy. Ivy has always had a sort of pin-up look to her. She's gone from being an eco-terrorist and supervillain to a borderline hero, or at the very least, a neutral kind of figure. She's worked with the Birds of Prey and was even granted access to the superhero mental facility known as Sanctuary. Her design originally involved a leafy bodice before becoming more full coverage, with her wearing a black full bodysuit covered in foliage, likely to grant her more control over her poisonous touch. However, since her death and resurrection, her look has been radically changed once more, with her now having a sort of a green sinewy look, making her appear as though she is literally made out of plant life, which kind of would make sense considering this version of Poison Ivy was born from a rose, a piece of herself that she'd given to Harley. Number 6. She-Hulk. Speaking of people that are green, Jennifer Walters had to wrestle with a lot since she was first introduced. She has had to deal with her permanent connection to Bruce Banner and has had to work to earn a sense of separation from his character as the Hulk. She went from being a sexy, playful pinup hero to a full-on rage-filled, muscle-bound machine in terms of her appearance, and inside, Jen has had to deal with acknowledging her addiction to her Hulk form, as well as working to heal from that addiction. Everything she has been through has changed, not just her on the inside, but these changes have also creeped into her character design as well. Most of the changes to She-Hulk's behavior and appearance came from her powers getting a big boost, and the change has been so great that even Jen herself was forced to acknowledge it, as the two versions of herself ended up facing off in a mental courtroom. She had to reconcile with that stuff. She was like, which Hulk do I want to be? And they were like, I'm better. They're both pretty good, I think. Number 5, Dazzler. Alison Blair has had so many different looks over the years that have been so drastic, it's hard to keep track, because there are likely some comics, depending on which Dazzler you are most familiar with, where you wouldn't even recognize her. A lot of her changes have come about because when she was created, she was somewhat kind of trapped in a time capsule. She had a very disco era look to her because she originally came out in 1979, just as disco was kind of getting ready to fade into the background. This was also because originally her character was created in partnership with Casablanca and its founder Neil Bogart. However, eventually Casablanca pulled away from the project, leaving Dazzler as Marvel's sole property. As times and trends have changed, so did Dazzler's look. She got a redesigned costume from Professor X during her time with the X-Men that was more superhero looking and a little less disco. She's had almost every hair color under the sun, red, pink, and black, as well as her iconic long blonde hair look, but she's also worn her hair short and even shorter many times. Like most female musical artists, it seems that Alison also feels the need to reinvent herself often. Number 4, Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock went from a straight-up villain who once plotted to steal Aunt May's recent inheritance by marrying her and becoming Peter's new uncle, kind of a weird plan, to body swapping with Peter and becoming the new Spider-Man. Not how he wanted that plan originally to go. Of course, originally he simply aimed to just steal Peter's body, as his was failing him. But Peter ended up flooding Otto's mind with his memories and convincing him to turn heroic. Otto did end up being convinced and agreed to take on the mantle of Spider-Man, becoming Superior Spider-Man. And he stayed as Superior Spider-Man for quite some time, before eventually feeling that he had kind of ultimately failed and relinquishing the body back to Peter's consciousness. He has since reappeared with his more classic appearance and role, with no memory of his time as Superior Spider-Man, how convenient, but still, for the original Dr. Octopus, his time as Superior Spider-Man remains part of his history, and was definitely a huge change for the character, and one that went on for a while. Number 3, Venom. Eddie Brock has basically done a full 180. When he was first introduced, he was a Spider-Man villain who would stop at nothing to defeat Peter Parker, whom Eddie blamed for all of his misfortune. He ended up joining forces with a symbiotic being that Spider-Man himself had rejected, and their relationship together as Venom was solidified through their joint hatred of the wall-crawling vigilante. However, over the years, Eddie's focus would shift. Where this likely all started from was the tiny bit of consciousness we saw early on as Brock wrestled with his Venom persona when it came to not harming any civilians or innocents on his revenge mission. This goodness in him would grow over time, and now Venom is no longer really a villain, but is more of an anti-hero, and even often an ally to Peter Parker's Spider-Man, albeit usually a begrudging ally. Number 2, Iceman. Remember when Bobby was first introduced and he was basically a snowman? When it comes to Iceman, one of the greatest changes we've seen from him is just how much his power levels have grown. There was a time when Emma Frost, while body swapping with him, was actually better at using his powers than even he was, inspiring Bobby to learn from Emma and work hard to learn in general how to better control and use his powers. His control has improved so much so that many consider him to be Alpha or even Omega level. The depiction of Bobby's sexual orientation has also changed. Originally, he was presented as being straight until 2015 in the comics when Bobby realized he was gay, and in later years went on to fully accept this and even come out. While he's dated a lot of women over the years, he's currently in a relationship with Emma's brother, fellow mutant, and current White Bishop, Christian Frost. And I kind of love them together, I'm not gonna lie. Number 1, Harley Quinn. Harleen Quinzel has seen some pretty radical changes to her role in the comics and her character design. She was once the Joker's girlfriend and partner in crime, but after years of suffering and being mistreated by him and years of living in his shadow, Harley finally decided to break things off with the Joker. She went out on her own, even when he tried to track her down during her time with the Suicide Squad and convince her to return to him. The Joker told Harley that she would be nothing without him, and that he'd practically made her. He terrorized her, turned her hyenas, Bud and Lou Rabbit, and sicked them on her, forcing her to kill them. This did not inspire Harley to return to the Joker's side though, but instead strengthened her resolve. And it turns out he was wrong about Harley, as she has done pretty well for herself on her own, having all kinds of wacky, fun adventures and becoming a more neutral character than a straight-up villain.
Starting us off in at number 10, Superman. Over the years, Superman's identity has been revealed, almost revealed, shared amongst allies, discovered by enemies, you name it. For a dude whose identity is masked solely by a pair of spectacles, the fact that he has remained anonymous to most is actually kind of impressive. Now, in 1986, in Superman issue 423, we got to see Clark Kent's secret identity exposed during a live television broadcast in a story penned by Alan Moore. Now, this would eventually be tossed out from continuity when Man of Steel would be rebooted, and the title Superman's comics would be altered after this issue to Adventures of Superman, although still kept the issue count. Now, of course, Brian Michael Bendis is planning on having Superman reveal his identity as Clark Kent to the world again in the most recent run of his comics. Because in case you didn't know, Bendis is attempting to ruin everything iconic about Superman. Remember when he decided to rewrite what happened to Krypton and Superman's father? Yeah, that was dumb and disappointing. So don't expect much from this upcoming story. But according to him, he's just bringing Superman closer to being, I quote, the best version of himself. Ugh. Up next, number 9, The Great Machine. Our next number comes from Brian K. Vaughan's Ex Machina, a series under DC's Wildstorm imprint. Now, the story follows the life of a vigilante named The Great Machine, a fellow whose identity is Mitchell Hundred, who, in this universe, is the one and only superhero in existence. Now, the narrative jumps between flashbacks of The Great Machine's days as a superhero and present-day events when Mitchell is the mayor of New York. One of those flashback moments occurs in the 38th issue of the series, where we finally see how Mitchell's identity is revealed to the public and made public knowledge. Mitchell chooses to unmask himself when he announces that he is running for mayor of New York. Mitchell has chosen to reveal himself this way as a means of winning over more voters. If he's willing to sacrifice his life on a daily basis for the well-being of New York City citizens, imagine how devoted he'll be as mayor of that city. Yeah, it's actually a pretty smart platform to run with. In at number 8, Green Lantern John Stewart. In 1985, in Green Lantern Volume 2, Issue 188, John Stewart revealed his identity. At the time, he was the only operating Green Lantern on Earth, with Hal Jordan having just retired from the Corps. John reveals his identity during an interview on a news channel with reporter Tawny Young. Generally, it wasn't too much of a blow to his reputation, minus getting fired from his day job, which kinda sucked. But from then on out, John Stewart's identity remained out as public knowledge, and in the following year, after waking up from the coma he was in, fellow Green Lantern Guy Gardner would also adopt the open identity and lack of a mask as well.
Number 7, Cheetah. We have just had so many Cheetahs over the years and so many different origins for this character. Cheetah is a legacy Wonder Woman villain who went from being Priscilla Rich, a jealous debutante who was envious of Wonder Woman and as such became obsessed with opposing her as a hate-filled supervillain, to Barbara Minerva, an archaeologist who was actually once a good friend of Wonder Woman until she was captured and given superpowers by the plant god Kartaga, hopefully I'm saying that right, which allowed her to become part cheetah, part human creature. Barbara became an enemy of Wonder Woman not because she was jealous, but because she blamed Diana for not saving her. Yikes. Number 6. Galactus. Even with Galactus' origins, there was a lot of change going on with him from the beginning of his story. Just in his transition from alien humanoid and explorer Galen to the powerhouse that we know as Galactus. But while Galactus has been painted as a villain in the past, he also became understood as more of a neutral figure over time, with us even learning that although Galactus' insane power levels and hunger caused him to need to devour whole planets, he actually was a cosmic force that was needed when it came to maintaining balance in the cosmos. Basically, Galactus is a necessary evil. For a time though, he even moved from being more of a villain or neutral figure to actually being good, becoming the Life Bringer, a being who, instead of devouring planets and feeding on their energy, had the desire to recreate planets, including restoring the lost life and lost worlds that he had previously devoured. Of course, now he's back to being Galactus, so. Number 5. Killer Frost. Killer Frost is a mantle that has been both associated with villains and heroes in DC Comics. One of the more notable characters to use the moniker was Dr. Caitlin Snow, a researcher who found her body had become merged with ice following an accident with a coolant system during a time when she was frantically trying to escape former colleagues who were revealed to be villains who wanted her dead. This transformation caused her to become a heat vampire, draining heat from others in order to survive. She could also produce and control ice spikes and harm others with her intensely icy touch. Caitlin Snow has been a hero on a few occasions, but she has also been a villain on a few occasions as well, often changing back and forth and flip-flopping between the two. Similar to Morbius, her main purpose is seeking a cure to her condition, and her alignment often depends on which hero or villain best suits this purpose. Number 4. Joker. So you might be surprised to see Joker on this list. After all, there are some characters here who have changed from the side of villain to hero, which to some might be considered a bigger change than anything we've seen from the consistently villainous character known as Joker. However, I would argue that just because his alignment has not changed much doesn't mean that his approach to crime hasn't changed a lot. The Joker originally was introduced 80 years ago as a very dark and sinister clown, murderous certainly, but not quite as violent, shocking, or horrific as he is now. There have also been various spins and takes on this character when it comes to the Joker's philosophy in regards to why crime and Batman are just so important to him. Over time, he's become much more obsessive, and his character has become more and more about pushing the limits when it comes to just how shocking and terrible his schemes can be. Just how much can the Joker push the envelope? How much can he shock or scare you? Originally, there was no real desire or need for the Joker to do this, by the way, in the comics. He kinda just did stuff because he wanted to. He used to be more about the action, and now he seems to be more about the reaction. It's all about a rise he can get out of you. I bet if you never reacted to the Joker, he would actually get super bored of being a villain to you. Number 3. Emma Frost. So many of the mutants, it feels like, are having their evolutions highlighted in the newest mutant line, Dawn of X, and this in no way excludes everyone's favorite telepathic villain turned hero, Emma Frost. Emma's changes really came from her passion as a teacher. Simply put, Emma was never an explicit villain in the comics. It was never really that simple for her. She's always been a more complex character, but for the sake of this list, we're going to consider her early on actions and feuds with the X-Men enough to refer to her as an X-Men villain, at least in the beginning. What we saw with Emma, however, was that even when she was in conflict with the X-Men team, she always seemed to admire and respect them somewhat. And it was this respect for Xavier's ability as a teacher that caused her to reconsider her own alignment, and her desire to be the best teacher possible for her students that inspired her to join Xavier and eventually the X-Men team, becoming more and more of a hero with each appearance as time went on, and as she also got closer to team leader Cyclops, aka Scott Summers. Number 2. Poison Ivy. Ivy herself has done a complete 180 since her initial introduction in the comics. She was originally a villain who used pheromones to seduce Batman, pining after him, and was painted as an eco-terrorist who put plant life before human life, often believing that humans needed to be exterminated. Since she was first introduced, Poison Ivy has actually moved closer towards becoming a hero, even starting to see that humans might not be as awful as she originally thought, and learning to tolerate and even form friendships with them through her bond with Harley Quinn. These two have actually proven to both be a huge part of contributing to the other's evolution, something that also often rings true in most people's everyday life. Many people learn and grow through the relationships that they form with others, giving us all a greater understanding of one another and the world around us. Number 1. Venom. Venom and Eddie Brock are probably the characters who have both undergone the most change together since their first introduction in the comics. It has honestly been a joy to read their growth and transition from supervillain to reluctant anti-hero to full-on anti-hero and even sometimes full-on hero. The symbiote we often refer to as Venom itself has had many partners over the years that it is bonded with, but it's safe to say that for better or for worse, Eddie Brock is the one who has inspired the most change in the symbiote, and the same could be said for the symbiote's influence on its main host, Brock himself.
Coming in at number 10, we have a cosmic new origin story for the infamous Killer Croc. One of Batman's more physically intimidating villains over the years, Killer Croc long assumed he was a human man named Waylon Jones with a disease that coincidentally disfigured him into looking like a human crocodile hybrid. However, following an investigation into a serial killer believed to be Killer Croc's son, Batman reveals to the villain that in his hometown during the year he was born, seismic activity lining up with those caused by a meteor was registered, along with multiple DNA alterations in the area resulting in mammals with reptile genetics. Horrified at the realization that he might actually be the result of an alien species from outer space, Killer Croc just goes to show that the wild villains of Gotham can always get a little bit wilder. At number 9, we've got a major death in the Power Rangers comics, a franchise of superheroes that we don't often get to cover on this channel, but hey, I'm a 90s kid, so let's bend the rules a little bit. Taking place in a slightly different continuity from the TV show, the Power Rangers of the comic book universe have been attempting to ward off an imminent invasion from the evil and all-powerful Imperials. Unfortunately, just as the war seems poised to begin, the Rangers are dealt a terrible blow when their mentor Zordon is betrayed by one of his own species and murdered by having his prism shattered. Talk about a smashing way to start a new and dark story arc, Rangers. Coming in at number 8, we have the X-Men's terraforming of Mars. The last few years have been particularly noteworthy for mutant kind, as the X-Men now call the entire island nation of Krakoa home, and have even been able to essentially make almost all mutants immortal. Going even further this year, in a grand display of power at the Hellfire Gala, Magneto and several other mutants combined their powers to terraform the planet Mars into a new homeworld for every mutant known as Planet Arakko. Taking only a few hours to accomplish, Magneto declared that this new planet is now the capital of the solar system and was an outstanding feat that displays just how powerful mutants are becoming in the wider Marvel universe.
Number 7. Riddler. Over the years, from a visual standpoint, the Riddler has changed quite a bit. He's also been varying levels of sane throughout the years as well. Though he's always been somewhat criminally insane, as that's a huge part of what makes him so obsessed with the world of riddles. He also always has a brilliant mind, and it's often his obsession with riddles and giving his enemies at least the ability to solve and then thwart him that often gets him caught. Riddler has gone from jet black hair to ginger hair and has even been spotted with a question mark mohawk before. He has been seen wearing his full spandex question mark suit originally, which became more and more of a question marked suit and tie look, to just a polished suit and tie look with hints of question marks, to back to that full spandex suit, to a trench coat, to Arkham Asylum prisoner garb. New Earth Edward Nygma also had a daughter who was only briefly around and known as Enigma, a sometimes pal of the Joker's daughter, Duella Dent. Look at where the Riddler started and finished, and you'll notice lots of visual and backstory changes to his character throughout the years. Number 6. Bane. While Bane in the comics might not have changed so very drastically over the years, the depiction of Bane's character in other media certainly has. Just compare comic book Bane to Nolan's Bane played by Tom Hardy, and then compare those two to the Harley Quinn animated series, and you've really got some different portrayals there. Bane in the animated series is sort of portrayed as being a not so bright but still quite strong softie. He is much less threatening than the other versions of Bane we have, and also much less of a genius, and he usually ends up as the butt of the other villains' jokes, and is often bullied by them, something that would likely never happen to comic book Bane, or Tom Hardy Bane for that matter. If the Legion of Doom were the mean girls, he'd be their Karen. Number 5. Carnage. In terms of changes, Carnage has seen a massive level up when it comes to power since his origins, and heck, even when he first appeared on the scene, Cletus Cassidy and his symbiotic friend were still a force to be reckoned with, striking terror into the fear of many hearts. But since the story of Maximum Carnage, we've also seen the story of Absolute Carnage come in, and learned that if we had thought Carnage couldn't get any more scary, well, we were wrong. In Absolute Carnage, Cletus' corpse is resurrected and bonded to the Grendel symbiote to create a new version of Carnage, which would later snowball into an even more powerful form known as Dark Carnage. Number 4. Sentinels. As the years and alternate timelines have continued to progress and multiply, we have seen tons of evolution from one of the X-Men's most iconic enemies, the Sentinels, with new models coming out made to adapt with the challenges of the times and the foes they are facing. In X-Men Gold, we saw nanite technology used in the creation of Sentinels to make them even more deadly, allowing them to adapt as needed, altering their size and shape. In the X-Men film Days of Future Past, we saw the evolution of Sentinels using Mystique's DNA to allow these Sentinels to change shape, but not only that. The Sentinels of the alternate post-apocalyptic future we saw were also insanely durable and could transform their body into bioweapons. This was a reimagining of the Sentinel technology potential, where these robotic beings, created by Dr. Bolivar Trask, had now become the ultimate enemy to mutant kind. Number 3. Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus went through a fairly big change when he decided to abandon his dying, failing body and complete one last sinister plot to steal Peter Parker's body for himself. He succeeded in swapping bodies with Peter, leaving Peter's consciousness stuck in his old failing body while he took up residence inside Peter's younger and much stronger body. However, Peter Parker's mind would still manage to convince Otto Octavius to not just let the change be a physical one, but also a mental one, swaying him to take up the mantle of Spider-Man and even inspiring him to set out on a mission to be an even better hero than Peter Parker was in the role. He took up the mantle of Superior Spider-Man. Well, now he's kind of being returned to his more classic appearance via a reborn duplicate of consciousness. Otto's time as Superior Spider-Man gave us the most changed version of the character we've ever seen. Number 2. Loki. Loki has been on a roller coaster of change over the years. While the Marvel Cinematic Universe may have introduced us to a more classic Loki, evil adopted brother of Thor and Norse god of mischief, the reality is in the comics Loki has seen all kinds of crazy changes made to his form and character since he first appeared. After Loki and everyone died during Ragnarok, we saw him return in a female form, taking Sif's body for his own, and we had Lady Loki. Loki would later be returned to his male adult body after Sif reclaimed her own physical form. But then Loki would die again and instead be returned to us as Kid Loki, who was more heroic and far less villainous than his original counterpart. And now we have Loki Prime, who basically has returned to his original form but also holds within him all the altered forms that have come previous. He has the absorbed knowledge of the different versions we've known over the years and can transform into any of them at will, even forms he didn't necessarily choose for himself. Number 1. Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn has seen momentous change over the years to her character. She has become independent of the Joker while starting out as simply a small character who was meant to be his little sidekick and girlfriend. She moved from the Batman animated series to the comics to the big screen. Her outfit has changed multiple times and her attitude has also changed along with it. As she's become more self-aware, she's begun to question more why she does what she does, attempting to understand her motivations and even better, herself, moving slightly closer with every passing year from the category of ultimate supervillain towards the role of anti-hero. Just creeping up there.
Number 10. Gold Beetle. Gold Beetle is a new character that appears in Future State Suicide Squad, who appears to be a mashup between Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, which is kind of an adorable concept if you ask me. She made her first glorious appearance at the end of the secondary story in Future State Suicide Squad issue number 1, but that likely isn't all we'll be seeing of her. April's cover for Flash issue 769 seems to suggest that she'll also be joining Wally West's Flash for some more adventures. Now that should be fun. Number 9. Eternal Garden. We see the future of Kara Zor-El come to an end in issue number 2 of Kara Zor-El Superwoman. Here we see her Fortress of Solitude become a home to many as the years go on. As more and more people come there to aspire to live up to her image and her name as she ages, the Fortress of Solitude earns a new name as the Eternal Garden. Even if you aren't completely sold on this dramatic change, it's still one worth reading about just for all of even this pretty art and the colors that it brings to you. Kara lives out her days here, and eventually the Eternal Garden becomes her eternal resting place. Kind of love it. It's really, really pretty, like wow, so pretty. You definitely need to check it out. I just even want to hang these covers up. I really love the covers for that series. Number 8, The Arkham Knights. One of the most interesting groups to come out of Gotham has been the Arkham Knights. This team is one created out of the deranged criminal minds from Arkham. Some interesting elements are that their hideout is Wayne Manor, in a world where, of course, many believe that Batman is dead, so this is like a Wayne Manor that's abandoned right now. The members of the team also are focusing on not just advancing themselves with physical training, but are also engaged in therapy still as well. So it's kind of like some weird villains turned hero team building and rehabilitation exercise that is all led by Astrid Arkham, the last surviving member of the Arkham family, also known herself as Arkham Knight. Hence the team name, Arkham Knights. Get it? She's the Arkham Knight. The team includes such characters as Victor Zsasz, Copperhead, Clayface, Dr. Phosphorus, Two-Face, Humpty Dumpty, Killer Croc, and Anarchy.
Number 7. Captain Marvel takes charge. Captain Marvel recently took over the Avengers as the new team leader, and I am loving it. In the first issue of Avengers from 2023, Carol was introduced as the new captain of the team after having been elected in basically like a poll by card-carrying Avengers roster members. Tony gave Carol the news and she started to assemble her team, and I'm pretty here for who she picked, honestly. Although I would have loved to see her pick Spider-Woman. I still think, overall, she made some great selections for who would be joining her on the Avengers this time around. I especially really love her pick for Vision and her reasoning behind it. You should check out the first issue. That's all I'm saying. Just the first issue at least.
Next up at number 6 is Tony Stark, Kang the Conqueror. Kang is here to crash the party in his stunning new Iron Man suit, and I just couldn't wait to talk about it. His bold new look is revealed on a variant cover of Ultimate Invasion number 4, which is set to release September 27th. In this altered reality, the Maker, which is an alternate Reed Richards, wields time travel to reshape the world to his liking, erasing heroes like the Fantastic Four and leaving villains to power. Yet challenges emerge, including a time-traveling army modeled after the Avengers like Thor and Captain America. Here, Iron Man is Howard Stark, and the Maker suspects him of creating a powerful time machine, setting the stage for a clash with Kang. But who's under the Kang mask here? Possibilities are abound as Ultimate Invasion charts its own path free from established lore. The answer lies within these pages, promising an exciting twist in the Marvel saga. There was already a lot of speculation with the release of Ultimate Invasion 3 that Tony himself would be revealed as some sort of Kang the Conqueror variant, and this new look might just prove that theory. But we'll just have to wait for issue 4 to drop to find out.
Number 5. Limbo comes to Earth, but not in the manner that you would expect. In the last few years in the comics, in the pages of New Mutants, we've seen Limbo get a new ruler in the form of Madeline Pryor's Goblin Queen. Magic wasn't overthrown or anything like that. She actually chose to relinquish her metaphorical crown and step down from her place as ruler, passing on the responsibility to Maddie. This was because Maddie had basically convinced her that she was ultimately ready to turn over a new leaf. Then Dark Web happened, and some of the character development was kind of rescinded, but by the end of that event, ultimately restored, with Jean Grey sharing her memories of raising baby Christopher, aka Nathan Summers, aka Cable, with Maddie. In the end, Maddie decided to step into the light, bringing her realm of often unwanted demons with her, so that finally, those forced to hide in the darkness could be seen and accepted by the world. Kind of a beautiful little moral there. She did this by bringing the realm of Limbo to New York City with her Limbo Embassy. Now, that should make for an interesting change to the NYC skyline.
Next up at number 4, we've got Carnage versus the Venoms of the Multiverse. It took 3 issues for this version of the Carnage to finally see a setback in his plan to eliminate every alternate version of Venom in the multiverse. It's a really badass series with a lot of good subplots, but let's just get to the main course. The Carnage symbiote, now unshackled from his bond to Cletus Cassidy and endowed with new demonic abilities, rampages across the multiverse, relentlessly hunting down countless versions of Venom. Enter the intriguing Venom Man-Thing, seen in the newest release in number 4, a fusion of the Venom symbiote and Theodore Salas, also known as the Man-Thing. This mysterious creature boasts the extraordinary powers of strength and interdimensional teleportation to corrosive acid touch with both physical and mystical properties. Even more captivating, the Man-Thing's dominion over plant life takes a unique twist when merged with the symbiote. As the demise of the Venomverse unfolds in issue 3, the Man-Thing, tainted by Venom's influence, becomes a symbiote ecosystem of epic proportions. Capable of growing to kaiju-like sizes and telepathically controlling pant life, its powers seem limitless. The stakes are high as Carnage confronts the Venom Man-Thing, and the fusion of the Venom symbiote and the Man-Thing's incredible abilities paints a grim picture of a world ensnared in chaos, offering a thriving narrative that fans don't want to miss.
Number 3, end of an era. I think one of the wildest changes we are seeing coming to Marvel Comics this year, and likely continuing into next in terms of the fallout, is the end of the Krakoan era. I'll never be ready to say goodbye, and it's seriously super sad to see happening in the comics, but that's where we're at. The decline of Krakoa has been building up for a while, I would say since last year, and I suppose we should be happy that we even got this much of it, considering that it was supposed to end a long time ago in terms of Jonathan Hickman's plans, but still, I didn't even want it to end. I never want it to end. It's such a beautiful time. However, with the cataclysmic events of the 2023 Hellfire Gala, the last Hellfire Gala possibly ever, still bummed that I couldn't get a ticket to the SDCC Hellfire Gala this year, it's clear that this period of X-Men history is drawing to a close. I just don't know how we're going to return to the status quo after all this, though.
At number 2, Wilson Fisk owns the Hellfire Club. See, Wilson Fisk is no longer the Kingpin. He's passed the villainous torch to his son during Devil's Reign, reshaping the criminal landscape. However, Fisk isn't fading away. He's embraced a new persona in the Invincible Iron Man number 9, shaking things up. Fisk, who sought Krakoan citizenship through marriage, now looms as a potential threat during the X-Men's turbulent times, teased in the Fall of X. Brace yourself for a dark and impactful shift in the X-Men narrative, with the Kingpin of the Hellfire Club at the antithesis of the X-Men's headaches.
Number 1, it's about to get ultimate. The Ultimate Universe has once more returned. We at Top 10 Nerd have been anticipating this return since the days of 2020. Remember all those videos we did about Ultimate? It's because we thought it was coming back then. But it's coming back now! Finally, the time is nigh. It's happening. Jonathan Hickman has returned to Marvel to bring back the Ultimate Universe by having the Maker become free from his prison in 616 with a trajectory set to return home. He not only does this, but he is then tasked with rebuilding the entire universe after it was wiped from existence during the Secret Wars era. So it's not just a return to Ultimates, but it's a return to Ultimates as imagined by Evil Reed Richards, aka the maker of Earth 1610 originally.
At number 10 is Doctor Strange. In his first ever appearance in Strange Tales number 110, you'd almost think that Doctor Strange was a totally different character. He appears as though he's some phony fortune teller at some town fair, to be completely honest. His color palette was yellow and blue, with this bizarre popped collar and streaks of silver in his hair. But over the years he began to shift more into something resembling what we know today. He soon enough dons the red cape, but it's still missing the gold lining, and the medallion on his collarbone seems to be independent of the garment of his cape. Although down the line we do come towards what we know today, it takes a while even seeing an instance where his head is entirely covered in a Deadpool-like mask. He's held back on this list only because a lot of this seems to be a natural process of his costume changing, but he still deserves a spot on the list because of how many different variations there have been. Okay, at number 9 is Captain Marvel. Some might argue that Danvers, in all of her different iterations as Miss Marvel, then Binary, Warbird, then finally Captain Marvel, has been a victim of what a lot of female comic book characters have been subject to, and that this could be the reason for all the costume changes. In earlier iterations, many female superheroes had very revealing costumes that have become a bit more dignified as time goes on, so naturally those costume changes are necessary regardless of what the character is going through. But with the case of Captain Marvel, it could also be argued that these changes were due to her complex and twisting development as a character. A few of the more prominent changes are when she goes from the red, blue, and gold color palette to the red and white look as Mrs. Marvel. Not to mention, during this era, flames are an inherent part of the outfit emitting from her head, arms, and legs. But even in the modern era, we see a few changes happening in the last decade, with the balaclava and mohawk coming into play for a brief period, then the recent change back to the grayscale color palette. It's a lot of changes and they're not always bad, but it seems like a few times the artists just weren't sure about what to settle on for her. At number 8 is Dick Grayson's Robin, and eventually Nightwing. The Robin mantle has had a lot of changes over the years, and the fact that the character's name even changes from Robin to Nightwing speaks to how many iterations of the costume we've seen. Originally, Robin works the red, green, and yellow look with the impossibly tight green speedo and the weird green shoes. But as the character develops and gets a bit darker, he gets some pants, thank the Lord, as well as shoulder pads and armored gauntlets. But eventually, as the character takes on the Nightwing mantle, we see a blue and gold color palette come into play. And even that costume gets a few makeovers, going from the blue to a black and red look, back to a darker, more serious navy blue without the gold. He even appears briefly in a purple hood in a recent issue, but is now back to a black and blue look, similar to his classic outfit.
Number 7. Harley Quinn. Harley has always been a pretty big fan of changing up her look, so it shouldn't be much of a surprise that she would make our list for new changes to design this year. Harley is likely going to be seeing not just external changes, but is also going to be seeing some internal ones as well that will carry on towards her new series in 2021. In Future State Harley Quinn, we are not only served up an awesome new look for Harley, but we are also going to be exploring Harley's allegiances and her alignment in depth, where she's coming more into her sense of independence and growing even more as she wrestles with just what kind of anti-hero or even full-on hero she wants to be. Aside from Future State, Harley also got a new look for the Suicide Squad, which seems to echo the look Margot Robbie will be sporting as Harley in the upcoming Suicide Squad movie. Number 6. Spider-Woman. There has been some controversy over Spider-Woman's new outfit, so I'd like to come in and clear the air a little bit. Also, I've said it before and I will say it again, if you are not reading this new Spider-Woman series, what are you doing with your life? You need to check your priorities because it is actually so good. It should be at the tippy top of everyone's reading list right now. And if it's not, I'm looking at you, I'm chastising you. Put it up there. Put it at least on your list. Spider-Woman sports a new suit in her newest series starting in issue number 1, but the suit is also amazingly integrated into the story. It's not only justified by Jessica Drew as to kind of why she needs it, but it also features into the ongoing storyline as well in a way that is very intriguing. No spoilers. For Jess though, I will share that she decides she needs a new look when everyone's favorite stay-at-home dad, Roger, suggests a return to security work, or as Jess refers to it as, more like mercenary work, after Jess laments a pileup of bills. Jessica then decides she needs a separate suit to signify that the work that she is doing is paid hero work to any onlookers and not as altruistic as her standard fare. Also, I love when she's like, I don't know, because like it's not very hero-y of me to accept payment, and Roger is like, you'll always be our hero. And I'm just like, oh, it's so cute. Her needing a new costume for this makes sense to me. And I personally think the new suit looks great, especially when she's on her bike. For some reason, it's just like really good bike suit. Number 5, Katana. In Future State, the next Batman issue number 1, we get a glimpse into some other going-ons in Gotham with some extra stories. One such group that we are introduced to is the Outsiders. Honestly, a group that I immediately wanted even more of after I finished their story. The Outsiders are a group of vigilantes who aim to help free the people from under the rule and thumb of the Magistrate, the future villain that everyone in Gotham seems to have to deal with in one way or another. Members of the team include Signal and a seemingly reluctant Katana, but one who has also received not only an updated badass look, but also an upgrade when it comes to her abilities. Honestly, I love this new look, and I love her new jetpack too, even if we only got it for that one issue. Number 4, Professor X. Or maybe just X, as I think he's going by now. Is it X? Though it's hard to keep track of these new names, honestly, especially considering Apocalypse has one, but no one seems to use it, calling him every other name that he's gone at length to say, don't call me that, at any given opportunity. Professor X is now younger and more agile than we've ever seen him before. Well, maybe not his most agile. He's not able to like dodge bullets or anything. During Dawn of X, we also see that Charles also now has a completely new look and design, with him wearing a form-fitting all-black suit and keeping Cerebro on at all times. Makes him also look very mysterious. Number 3, Wonder Woman. With the Wonder Woman films being some of the more successful DC films out there in terms of box office numbers and just overall viewership, as obviously not a lot of us are going to the theaters right now, it seems DC is putting Wonder Woman at the forefront of their latest refresh. We've seen Wonder Woman go through quite a few changes over the last year, from wielding a chainsaw with her lasso of truth operating as its ripcord to her being elevated to god level by the end of the latest death metal event, when she took on the Batman Who Laughs herself. As Future State continues to develop, we'll not only see her character evolve into a new role in the DC universe, but we've also seen the massively successful introduction to new popular Brazilian Wonder Woman, Yara Flor. Everything seems to be coming up Wonder Woman right now in the best way possible. Number 2, Donald Blake. Donald Blake doesn't just have a whole new look, he also has a whole new agenda as he returns not as Thor's ally, but as his enemy. He's hell-bent on a mission to take down not just Thor, but all of Asgard and the Asgardian gods besides. He sports a new, darker, and crazed look while also brandishing his signature wood stick, but also armed with a scalpel, which is terrifying. He looks like a wizard gone mad, which is fair considering, well, all of that Donald has been through up to this point. Everyone beware, because evil Donald Blake has arrived. He is looking for some payback. Number 1. Poison Ivy. Ivy has had quite a wild ride the last few years when it comes to changes in looks and even her alignment. In 2019, we got a brand new look from her after she was brought back to life by Wally West, resurrected from a flower she'd given Harley in Heroes in Crisis. After that, Ivy went through a lot more changes until we got a completely new outfit and redesign for her in 2020, where she dubbed herself Queen Ivy and threatened all of Gotham with vines, or perhaps more accurately roots, below its surface in Joker Warzone. We are still waiting to see how this plays out, but while I love that Ivy has taken the title of Queen, I'm hoping this plot ends up being more fearsome than the plant that is actually known as Queen Ivy, which looks like a houseplant that you might find your granny tending. Not to say grannies can't be fearsome. I mean, hey, look at Granny Goodness. But I love that she's supposed to be like Devil's Ivy and then they were like Queen Ivy. Number 10. Spider-Man. We still have a few issues to wait for this, but it was announced at the end of 2020 that Peter Parker will also be getting a brand new look in 2021, designed by artist Dustin Weaver in tandem with the creative team on Amazing Spider-Man. As we won't be seeing this costume till issue 61, with it being featured on the covers of issue 62 and 63 of the current series, we don't know too much about it other than, well, what it looks like. The new look could be described as kind of futuristic and even a little bit reminiscent of Peter's dark white Future Foundation suit he had a while back. It'll be interesting to see if this costume is just as good at staying clean, or perhaps shifting into other looks or colors as that costume was. I hope it at least is good at staying clean. I feel like anytime you wear a bright white accented superhero suit in New York City, it's gonna be tricky unless you have Mr. Fantastic's unstable molecules. Black Mask. Black Mask hasn't changed as much as some of the others on this list, but he did receive a refresh to his look in Future State, and he got a bold new wardrobe in the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey film earlier last year. Gone are the days of pinstripe suits for Black Mask as 2021 comes around, and I gotta say, thank goodness. In Future State, we get a black, white, red, and gold palette for this new design, with a much more detailed and lavish mask featuring red glowing eyes and gold teeth. To me, this screams the horror that is Black Mask even more loudly than any of his previous looks. Whereas in BOP, Ewan McGregor delivered as Black Mask not just with a mesmerizing performance, but also with various loud and polished suits and looks, including a button-up shirt with a custom print design pattern featuring his own face. Seriously, the costuming for that movie was so good. Loved it so much. Alright friends, before we move on to this next point, if you want to help us out here at the channel, you can do so by giving this video a thumbs up. Seriously, it really does help, and thank you for anyone that's already done it. Number 8. Hulkling. Hulkling kept his color scheme, but also had some major changes to his role in the Marvelverse and his look in the past year. With Empire, we saw him take his rightful place as Emperor of the Alliance, uniting both the Kree and Skrull empires together. He also was forced to march on his own home, planet Earth, and had to consider the possibility that he might actually have to destroy it, as he faced the alien plant race known as the Katati, who were there and were using Earth to bolster their strength and their power. He also got a sweet cape and more regal looking variant of his suit, and the awesome and epic star sword known as Excelsior. Oh, and while we weren't looking, he and Wiccan also got married. Thank goodness we got to go to the wedding after them. I was like, where's my invite? Why didn't I get invited to this wedding?
In at 7, The Ancient One. As much as we all love Tilda Swinton, or maybe as much as I love Tilda Swinton, this was a bit of a controversial move on Marvel's part. In Marvel Studios' Doctor Strange, Swinton was cast as the Ancient One. The Ancient One in the comics had long been seen as a problematic character, a stereotypical and arguably offensive Asian character who serves as Strange's mentor and teacher. Marvel Studios changed the character to be a Celtic interpretation of the Ancient One instead, which had a lot of fans pissed off. Despite the racial stereotyping, many felt that Marvel Studios had a responsibility to do better than the comics by casting an Asian actor, ultimately providing better Asian representation. And at number 6, Hal Jordan and Parallax. In the aftermath of the Death of Superman arc, Hal Jordan's home of Coast City was destroyed by one of those knockoff Superman replicas who rose up to replace the Man of Steel when he was presumably deceased. That's a whole other Pandora's box for another day though. The focus here is Hal. He went a little mental and decided to use his ring to recreate his home and save the 7 million innocent people who had died because of this tragedy. That went against the rules of being Green Lantern. You can't use your ring for personal gain. The Green Lantern Corps called him out, and what did Hal do? He went on a rampage. Fought them, killed some of them, and this comic book cover will forever be seared into our memory. Oh, the rings. Turns out he was actually being possessed by Parallax, who had manipulated Hal into getting its freedom. So Hal was kind of technically free of the blame. Sort of. It took years for Batman to trust him again, causing the two to have some major conflict for a long time. Up next at number 5, Heroes Reborn. During the Onslaught saga, the titular villain, who had been spawned from the darkest aspects of Charles Xavier's consciousness and Magneto's mind combined, created such a kerfuffle for the X-Men that Marvel's other superhero teams had to step up to help out. That was, in doing so and saving the day, the Avengers and the Fantastic Four actually sacrificed themselves, dying in the process. But there's a twist. Turns out Franklin Richards had created a pocket universe in which all of the heroes were essentially reborn. They all returned. This was during a time when Marvel was outsourcing some of their main titles to a bunch of different creators, a money thing. And this crossover event was spearheaded by Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld. Except it was absolute garbage. Characters were changed in ways that many fans despised, and their new characterizations felt more like bastardizations. Sure, you can pull something off like that in an alternate universe, but in the 616, not so much. Also, the art was terrible. It's kind of like the disgusting cherry on top. Rob can't draw feet. And at number 4, Power Girl. Power Girl has had a rough one when it comes to retcons. The DC superhero started off as a character from Earth 2, the alternate Earth in the multiverse that is home to the Golden Age versions of DC characters. She was the Earth 2 version of Supergirl, which made perfect sense. But then Crisis on Infinite Earths happened, which essentially reset the DC multiverse and led to some major changes for some of its most beloved individuals. Power Girl got an overhaul, one that made little sense at the time, to many fans' dismay. So the event had wiped out Earth 2, and she then just existed on DC's Prime Earth, so her origin story was reinvented to make her a descendant of an Atlantean sorcerer. Kinda left field, isn't it? Also made zero sense. Eventually things were retconned back during Infinite Crisis, and she became Supergirl from another timeline again. Thankfully. Up next, number 3, Rick Grayson. As my fellow host Sasha succinctly put it, now I can read Nightwing again. Oh god, in case you have been under a rock as far as DC is concerned lately, and to be fair, at times I wouldn't blame you, you may be unaware that Dick Grayson, the boy wonder Robin who grew up and became Vigilante Nightwing, leader of the Teen Titans, and even helmer of the Batman mantle at one point, lost his memory, and started calling himself Rick. It was really lame. He didn't even spell Rick with a K, that's how edgy it was. Which like I also don't get, because like, were they just trying to make it distinct from Dick? But it literally rhymes with Rick. This all went down when Nightwing was shot in the head with a sniper rifle by KG Beast. He survived, but he lost his memory, dealt with severe trauma, and then moved to Bloodhaven, becoming a taxi driver. He started to drink heavily and gamble, and he was aggressive. And he had no memory of his life as a crime fighter. So when he did find out, he tried very hard to wipe that whole past life clean and even set fire to his hideout. Eventually he couldn't keep his true nature buried and ended up becoming a vigilante again, readopting the Nightwing mantle when helping out the Bloodhaven police. Then in Nightwing issue 68, his memory came back after a confrontation with his ancestor William Cobb, and he found out that his amnesia had actually been further manipulated by the Court of Owls in an attempt to make him their next Talon. And at number 2, the Black Symbiote Suit. In the aftermath of the first Secret Wars event, Spider-Man returned home to Earth wearing a black costume that he had acquired from a strange machine while on Battleworld. Fans were not keen on this change, and it was promptly altered, with the black suit eventually being a living symbiote alien that Mr. Fantastic had to help Parker remove before it was too late. That symbiotic alien would go on to become Venom, bonding with host Eddie Brock and becoming one of Spidey's most iconic antagonists. But where did the idea for a black suit come from? Back in 1982, a fan from Illinois named Randy Schuler mailed Marvel a letter with an idea for a new costume for the Webslinger. Marvel purchased that idea for a mere $220. The design was then modified by Mike Zeck. While a lot of fans weren't into it, the Alien costume saga is actually known for how mature the relationship between Parker and Mary Jane Watson was depicted. And really, something fantastic came out of the controversy, so it's kind of a win-win, right? That's not so much the case for our next number though. Last but not least, in at number 1, the Superior Spider-Man. We are ending off this list with yet another Spider-Man controversy that fans really did not like. We're talking about the Superior Spider-Man and the Dying Wish story arc. Now, in case you're unfamiliar, Dying Wish was an arc in which Otto Octavius, Dr. Octopus, was dying, and he decided to switch bodies with Peter Parker so that his consciousness went into Parker's body and vice versa. The result meant that Peter was trapped in Otto's body, causing him to die. Otto went on to resume Peter's identity as Spider-Man, except upgraded his suit and called himself the Superior Spider-Man. And while he was morally ambiguous, he did manage to turn out to be a bit of a hero in the end. As you can imagine, people were outraged with the whole thing, so much so that eventually Peter was brought back by some convoluted comic book magic and the status quo was returned.